was my primary goal as in my mom role, right? And
开
then on
始
the
录
flip
了。
side, when you're the crew
我这边
member,
回来
you
了。
know you're going to get to see your family really soon. You're
我
hoping
们
that
看
this is a
Crew 4
joyful experience for them, that they're enjoying it, that
已经
they're
很多人了。我
excited
刚刚
for
是去
you.
吃点东西啊。
So you do share those kinds of emotions. But I will say
在
it's a much
问
harder
这是在干
job.
嘛？这是 Crew
As
4
the
啊，
ones
是
that
第
are
4次
there
常规
and
的
left behind,
SpaceX
because
向
you don't
NASA
have that active role
将
in
NASA
the
宇
day's
航员
activities
运往
as
国际空间站
a
的
passenger
发射任务啊。
for somebody like
也
myself who
是
used to
空
be
差的
very
第7
active,
次载人发射
that
任务。
was a challenge to realize he's doing this all on his own and I can't help no
那
matter
么
what.
前几
So
天应该
that was
就
that was
昨
my
天嘛
challenge.
昨天40个小时左右前吧，30几个小时前，因是 XM1 的组员刚刚回来啊。那么现在是等于是国际空间站算是又有空位了。那么会是 Crew 4的宇航员先上去，然后是 Crew 3再下来。那么这边应该是我这边刚开始录啊。那么宇航员应该是着装是差不多了，应该是差不多要出来吧。出来之后呢是上特斯拉，然后是转运到39A 发射台那边。大概是这样的流程。FA 关于新建那边的审核的话，肯定是会延迟的，就不知道延迟多久。一般来说，这种的话，如果说会出结果的话，一般提前1个礼拜多少会有小道消息出来。那么现在小道消息就是说应该会延迟，我就是看一下会延迟多久的问题。
I think one of the most special things about this particular space flight are the people that I get to fly with. Bob Hines, our farmer, is a test pilot. He is the pilot for our spacecraft. Samantha Cristoforetti is an Italian fighter pilot who flew in 2014, and Jessica Watkins is one of our newer astronauts. She is somebody that absolutely is found.
那么这个女宇航员应该是这次是
Kjell is our fearless leader.
应该是比较新选进来的一个宇航员吧，肯定也是首次第一次飞。
I knew Kjell Lindgren, our commander, very well. He was on the backup crew of my first flight, so we spent quite some time together. So I felt very grateful.
大概来说是这边短片稍微走一下宇航员。这应该是任务专家吧？应该是 Jessica， 是让我看一下，名字是 Jessica Watkins。
You know, she joined our crew a little bit late, and for our very first SpaceX sim, she jumped right in there as if she had been training with us.
她是任务专家，然后是2017年被选为 NASA 宇航员的，是等于是很晚才加到那个 NASA 宇航员的这个团队里面的，算是一个比较新的宇航员，资历很浅。
Bob Hines, our farmer, is a test pilot. He is the pilot for our spacecraft.
那么就再介绍下一个是
to lean on his flying test pilot experience.
我勒个去，卡了！不要呀，麻烦，尴尬，尴尬了。
You will always bring a dad joke, so you can always be.
Hear how they bond, you know.
刚才反正就跳一下那边，刚才这一个宇航员介绍，哇，720P 也看了，可能是我这边的问题啊，我勒个去，换个圆吧。
And inside is some beautiful artwork. Megan, this is.
有点卡，有点卡。我稍微把那个上网工具更新一下。
Yes.
It's got a space station and it's tethered to the Earth.
希望解决了。
Yeah.
They're living in their own world there. Maybe one
希望这样能
day
解决
we'll
啊。
have plants and trees like that one. Thank you to all the children who participated in our art contest. It is up on the wall, and the astronauts of Crew-4 will be walking by.
好像稳住了，
and you'll see that
好像稳住了。
as they walk right by.
视频清晰度的话，就只有720P 啊，因为是 NASA 的直播嘛。
throughout the mission, we want
过
to
NASA， 虽然
invite
是
you
这边也是
to
空差的员，
come
但
out
是
to send us
也
your
算是 NASA 主
questions
持任务。
for Megan. We've got the expert on hand. NASA handle on Twitter. So tweet it at us, and we'll get some of those questions on the air and asked to
我
her.
可以补一下这次的。
We got a question right now, in
All
fact.
right.
From Go for Space launch, Megan, how many people can live and work on the space station at one time?
That's a great question. So when I
空差这边评论在问空差有没有
arrived
训练
aboard
自
the
己的宇航
International
员？
Space Station, there was already
应该是很难说是这样说吧。空差，因为空差现在是比较明确的，怎么又卡了？因为空差现在是有北极星任务嘛，就
does
是
make it a little
Jerry
crowded.
的
It
公
makes
布
it
的
a little
北极星
crowded
任
for
务啊
some。of the
那么北极星任务的话，第一次发射的话，第一次飞行的话，有2个是空差的员工啊，是怎么这么卡呀？这个是因为我这边的上网工具的问题吗？
hardware that you need to use, for example, the toilet or the galley to
Kimbo.
prepare your food. And so it impedes our ability to work effectively when there's that many people on board, but we all live there safely and we are teaching one another, you know, we call it handover to learn how to operate the space station.
Takes more coordination and more planning and organization.
Exactly.
The size of space station is roughly like I heard it described as a 5-bedroom house. I mean, outside it's as large as a
照说
football
这个应该
Right.
It is
好吧，
massive,
Right.
orbiting around our Earth. On the inside,
只能说希望它能稳住了。
Yes, so the
看
living
能不能
space
关点不
inside
需要的
is
东西啊。
smaller than the overall size of the space station. There's a lot of external structure on the space station that, you know, the truss that holds a lot of our equipment, power generation and distribution equipment, for example. And those are not pressurized living spaces, but they are still part of the structure of space station. So the living space inside 5-bedroom house is a closer number.
稍微等一
very,
下
very good. And about 6,000 square feet is what I heard as well. We have another social question as we are live outside of the crew quarters waiting for the astronauts from Crew 4 to walk out. What are some of the manual features on the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule? That comes from William 46617-13744.
So the manual features are designed in the event because the vehicle is designed to be largely automated and ground controlled. So the manual features are designed in the event that the crew has to take over or has to take care of themselves in some way. So we think about manual flying as a capability that we have close into the space station should that become necessary. We don't expect that to ever become necessary, but it was tested out on the original demo mission.
And as the pilot, that was something that you had to know well.
We had to train, Shane and I trained that together. And in the event, for example, that we had an unsuccessful docking, we would have to make sure that the vehicle was departing the space station appropriately and safely. And if it wasn't, then there was some manual control that we would take and do some maneuvering with the spacecraft. But fortunately, we never had to do that. But that's an example of the kinds of things that we can do manually on space.
Great
SpaceX
capability.
Dragon.
Yeah, absolutely. It's autopiloted if nothing goes wrong, but you want that ability to jump in and take it. Great question. Keep them coming. We've got another one here. Jet for Me asks, what's the launch trajectory and visibility for the Crew-4 launch? This is a little bit more of a complicated question dealing with the trajectory of this particular launch. It's the same as it was for you, where we're going up and out over the Atlantic seaboard.
Right. So I didn't get to see the last one like this, but I would imagine that it's going to be
好
a
刚刚离开了一会儿
spectacular
又
for
回
those
来
in
了
the local area,
问
because
什
it's
么
a night launch and
这
hopefully
啥
the
型
lighting
号
conditions
Model
will be
X
similar in that you can see the trajectory for quite some way as it
然
flies up along the
后
Atlantic
再问
coast.
什么
Especially at night with the brightness that this
724还没准备好是啥意思
At one of the Teslas and members of the media and family members gathering, you can see in the left-hand side.
哎，反正放松看吧，我们就反正就有空的话就聊聊天，有可能也是会时不时离开一点去拿点东西啊，弄点吃喝的东西。然后炫火的话，现在可能还在吃东西，炫火好像还没来。现在还早嘛，反正因为可以看嘛，有倒计时的嘛。等一下，那上次直播没给倒计时吗？
All right.
倒计时到哪去了？还有3个多小时啊，离发射还有3个多小时，应该是4点不到的时候啊。
Those
那么
smiles.
现在是宇航员出那着装楼了。
Samantha Cristoforetti, and there in the elevator they go. Look at all those signatures, Megan. You can see them on the wall. Folks who have supported this program.
Yes, I remember that when we got into the elevator, and it's such a good feeling.
在问哪个州发射？这个是在卡角，就佛罗里达肯尼迪太空中心。那么空差会使用的一般都是39A 发射台。那么现在他们在的位置是Armstrong Complex，就算是 NASA 的一个综合楼吧。这里呢离那个发射场还是有一点距离的。待会儿进辆特斯拉之后呢，会以一个龟速的速度，然后转移到发射场那边。这个转移的过程也有差不多半个小时。
Yeah, so excitement is building. I remember waiting inside.
7，你们说的是几啊？我知道，说是新建的超重7是吧？BN7，SN7啊，我知道。BN7，对，BN7 报废的可能性还蛮高的，其实。
Saying goodbye to your husband, Bob Bacon, on that historic flight.
That's right.
这是以前过去的画面，是他们空差第一次做载人演示任务的时候 ，Bob 和 Duncan 当时离开的时候，这边会有跟他们家人分离的一个画面。现在的话，还是有这样的保留下来了，毕竟疫情还是没有完全过去啊。其实现在是北美那边对疫情的管控是逐渐松下来的，因为就是疫情已经逐渐成为一个过去式了。看看这次会怎么样吧。之前的话还是特别很注意社交距离的。其实之前的 XM1 的时候那一段好像没有注意看，我是那时候看的比较晚。那么。你仔细看的话，门框上啊，就是他们出来的门框上还有各次载人任务的任务标签的，就臂章啊贴在门框上面。对，这个车是从第一次 Bob 和 Duncan 开始，就第一次开始载人任务的时候就有这个车啊。当然第一次的时候呢是。Demo 2的时候是 Bob 和 Duncan 2个宇航员嘛，加上服务人员的话是2辆车，然后从 Crew-1 开始呢是增加到了3辆车，而且如果我不是很确定啊，他们好像车牌经常是不一样的，所以如果待会有机会看到车牌的话，你们可以看一下，基本上车牌都是一些比较有意思的那种。有，车门开了是，人呢？现在门都开了，应该是要来了吧？我们刚才已经看到镜头是他们坐电梯下来了嘛，所以应该是到1楼了，到1楼走出来，然后进车转移，大概是这样的流程。然后进舱，应该说先坐电梯，不，应该说是到转移场之后上最后一次厕所，然后是坐电梯上到楼顶之后，然后呢是走过剑桥，然后还有个仪式是和家人最后一次通电话，然后才是进舱。进舱嘛，出来，这些都不重要，待会反正都会看得到。这次的4名宇航员。
From left to right, Jessica Watkins, Bob Hines, Kjell Lindgren, and Samantha Cristoforetti.
就从左到右的名字报了一下。
And a cheer before they go off to space.
Samantha， 好吧 ，Jessica、Samantha、Bob， 还有一个是这个怎么念 ？Kjell。大概是，好，那还是注意社交距离的，也是应该的。你刚才有看到车牌吗？他们每次车牌都很有意思的，都是有梗在里面的每次。反正待会应该会给到车的镜头，你可以看一下他们给什么车牌，一般都是有含义的。 而且好像感觉印象中每次都看到的车牌都不一样。好吧。Jessica 就是这次这个最年轻的宇航员，他当时这边在显示一个有趣的，就是等于是小趣料吧，就是他是研究生的时候是在参与过好奇号 Curiosity 好奇号的那个火星车的研发。Samantha 这边的话是，Samantha 有这么长的时间，有200天的飞行记录啊。他之前应该是2次，Expedition 的话应该是做联盟号上去有2次。他在国际空间站逗留的时间接近200天。
I think for Bob's launch, there's an image of him like actually trying to get through the window before the vehicles drove away. But I managed to hold on to him. He was a little bit smaller then.
进车了。
One of our astronauts really soaking it in. I believe that's Kjell.
Yeah, I don't want to miss that picture, that perfect photo.
Yeah, it does look like he's posing. And the wave.
这是 Samantha 的第2次飞行。哦，这个 Samantha 对我有印象，对他印象还蛮深。他好像上一次确实在国际空间站逗留的时间特别久啊。
我查了一下，是逗留200天。
对，刚才他们显示，哎，你什么时候回来的？
刚才就在，只是现在正好热饭，没事儿。
我没有看4个宇航员的履历，我现在正在翻。对，我好像就看了 Samantha 这个脸印象蛮严肃的。
Yes, they get that up close view one more time with their loved ones.
又来了这个传统啊，就是我比较想一直每次都想吐槽的，都想看 Go for Launch 是这次的一个车牌之一。
And Megan, the plate for on every car of the Tesla is Go for Launch.
每辆车都是吗？
The custom plate. This has become a tradition.
Yeah, I like
to
it.
do on the ride out to the.
对，突然出现的漩涡。我刚才说，每次想吐槽就是他们开始的时候都跟家人告别的时候就隔了一条线嘛，还是蛮好的社交距离。坐上车以后，家人就靠上去了，这就想吐槽一下这个，做的还是很不彻底啊。所以是每辆车都是 Go for Launch 的车牌吗
？Even years really leading up to making a decision.
对，最后一辆是的。
And depending on the age of your family members, you do it in an age-appropriate way. And so for us, we wanted to make sure our son had a chance to watch a rocket launch.
所以说小朋友凌晨这个也过来送行。当地时间现在是12点半，也是半夜的才12点半，哎，无所谓的。这么重要的事情，肯定就通宵一下了。我觉得他家里人的话肯定是会一直观看整个发射过程。
And then he said, "Okay, you can go, but 180 days is much too long." So it's not really a negotiation, but it's a sort of a gradual introduction of what it is, and then you try to share obviously why you believe it's important to do these things, even though they're risky and that they benefit mankind and all of us.
And there goes our convoy rolling out to the launch pad. The last 10 miles, a 20-minute drive. They won't see much in the dark, but this is the way to space.
Yes. This is a nice relaxation moment. You've just gone through happy scene, hopefully, but an emotional scene nonetheless. And this is a little bit of a time
对，
to
上面还
kind
有
of lean back in your chair a
上面
little
还有
bit.
一个龙飞
For
船，两
me, it
个
was
上面还有
blaring
两个
some
龙飞船，
favorite
可能是
songs.
货运的
And
回
at
来了吗
nighttime that was fun just because of the, you know, the darkness and then the different lights that you see. It was kind of a
上面
new
至少
visual
是有
experience.
Crew
It's just in
3 的
time
那
for a little bit
个
of
龙飞船对
relaxation
接
before
着
the next phase of
上
the
次的
journey.
货运有没有回来？
And
我
now we begin the
看一下。
20-minute drive with a full security escort across NASA's Kennedy Space Center and out to launch pad
对，
39.
现在 Crew
And as
系列
we
的
follow
发射
on
都
board,
是
we'd like to
下
take a
新的一
closer
批宇航
look
员
at
上
the
去，然后
Crew-4
是再有
spacecraft commander
前一
and
批的
rest
宇
of
航
the
员回来啊，
astronauts
一
in
般是
this
这样的，
convoy.
这样的话他们交接可能会
Get to
稍
know
微
them a
方
bit,
便一
and
点。
we'll start off with NASA astronaut Kjell Lindgren.
Why do we explore? You know, I think venturing out into low Earth orbit and beyond helps us to better
啊，
understand
居然是
who
华
we
裔，
are and our place in the
啊，
solar
这个
system
吗
and the？
是
universe.
吗
My name is Kjell Lindgren, and I'm the commander for
Kjell
NASA's
Lindgren.
SpaceX Crew-4 mission to the International Space Station. I grew up in an Air Force family, and so I was born in Taiwan and spent the first 2 years of my life there. We lived in Kansas and Illinois, and then we were transferred to England. It was a phenomenal upbringing. The opportunity to experience different cultures, it
台湾
really
长
opened my
大，
eyes to
台
what
湾
it
后来
means to
在
be
英
an
国，
American.
然
I
后再
wanted
到
to be
美
an
国。
astronaut for as long as I can remember. I think I was inspired by the very first space shuttle launch in April of 1981.
他其实是中美混血。
And that, I think, is really when this dream was just burned into my consciousness. And so I charted out a path. I went to the Air Force Academy, maybe to become a test pilot and then ultimately
可以啊，
to
可以
join
，nice。
NASA as an astronaut. That path took some twists and curves.
Crew 系列
and I
这
ultimately
是
did not
啊，
become
也
a
不是第一
pilot,
个
but
黄种
went，into
之前有
medicine.
日本宇航员。
And yet still found a path through medicine where I could serve human spaceflight as a flight surgeon at NASA, supporting our crews training for International Space Station missions. But I still had that dream that perhaps I would get to do that job someday. It was absolutely amazing to get the call that I had been selected into the astronaut office. And it felt a little bit like a culmination of the hard work that I had invested in getting to that point. What an amazing, really dream come true for me.
那这就是这次的
2013,
船长
I
或
was
者
assigned to my first mission and spent 141 days living
指
and
令
working
长
on the
指令
International
长
Space
啊，这样更准确。
That truly was the realization of that lifelong dream, of all of those things in that moment and in that mission were really, really special. It was an absolute honor to get selected for the Crew-4 mission.
来看
And on
，1973
top of that,
年
to have the opportunity
，1973年，49岁，
getting to fly with this amazing crew with Farmer and Samantha and Waddy. They are incredible astronauts, and I feel very grateful to be on a team with them. But we're one small part of a larger team that spans the nation and the world. We truly get to leverage the best and brightest as we chase
转运的这段时间，
somewhat
基本上每个宇
impossible
航员都
goals.
会介绍一遍。
And so, as we push forward to the moon, as we push to Mars, we are presenting ourselves with almost insurmountable challenges. By presenting ourselves with those challenges, we become better as a community, as a country, and as a species.
这其实看上去还是蛮年轻的，
Story
50
Kjell
岁的，
Lindgren on his path to becoming an
看上去就
astronaut.
像
This is
30
what
多
you're
岁一样。
seeing right now. Megan, you remember this view? This is a live camera looking forward from the first Tesla.
就49岁对于宇航员来说真的不算年龄，不算大
But。that's NASA Causeway as they roll towards the pad.
That's right.
You were rocking out at this time.
I was, yes. Well, we were taking turns. We each got to choose some songs for the playlist.
离
And I
发
was
射还有
on
3 个
the
多小时。
Metallica and Red Hot Chili Peppers variety, and Shane's songs were a little different, but we did overlap in U2 territory, so there was some crossover.
Finding some common ground
Yes.
there with the music. Well, riding with Kjell Lindgren is Crew Dragon pilot and NASA astronaut by Bob Hines.
那么接下来应该是介绍飞行员。
I truly believe that we all have in us an innate desire to go explore and see new things. And we have this phenomenal creation that we've been placed in to learn about how it works. We have a very unique position in our solar system and our galaxy to be able to look out there and to step out and continue to explore. My name is Bob Hines. I'm the pilot for NASA's SpaceX Crew-4 mission to the International Space Station. I was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina. My father was in the Army. We were stationed at Fort Bragg. And we moved around a whole bunch. The longest we ever lived anywhere was
Bob
about
Hines.
2.5 years. I got really
他
comfortable
的维基页面上写的是
showing up
Robert
in new places and being able to
Hines，
make friends.
就缩写吧，其实也就是。
When I was a kid, I 100% wanted to be a pilot for as long as I
47 岁
could
啊。
remember. I was just always fascinated not only that something that big could fly and do some amazing things, but
那么也是
also
飞
just
行
the
员出身。
opportunity to go and see things that not many people have had a chance to do. Being able to fly and see the Earth from a new
而且
perspective
实
has
际
really
上
been just a
他
real
还
driver
一
for
个
me.
一次
And
航
getting
天任务
hired
都
as
没
an
有执行
astronaut
过。
has been the
哦，
ultimate
是吗？
call.
看一下，
Contrary to popular belief,
是
being a
真
test
的，
pilot is not
也
about
是第一次
flying
飞
by the
行。
seat of your pants and going out there and just pushing the edge of the envelope all the time. It is a much more scientific and methodical process where we plan out every mission and all the tasks on every mission, and we're constantly
这
mitigating
边
the
说不知道
risks
卡角现在
that
建
are
什么样子。
associated with that mission. That seems to
主要
really
是晚
dovetail
上，
very well
不然的
with
话可能会
spaceflight
扫到一，
because
可能
that's
那
a
个
lot
飘
of
到
what
一
we
眼。
do. My experience as a test pilot and as a pilot and an instructor, I think have all kind of led me to this point. When I got the phone call offering me the position of the pilot on the Crew-4 mission, it was absolutely amazing. It was actually the day after my birthday when I got the phone call, and I just couldn't believe it. When I told my wife, she couldn't believe it either. I've flown over 3,500 hours in more than 50 different kinds of airplanes, and that ranges from gliders all the way to different kinds of fighter airplanes or
也很不
large
错了。
transport
到
category
这个岁
airplanes.
数，如果再不飞一次，就
I
感
can't
觉
wait
有
to
点
fly
晚
with。this vehicle. It is
我
an
第一次飞
incredible
行
honor
呢，
and something that I never in
太
my
空飞行。
wildest dreams thought would be a possibility. And so to get a chance to pilot one of the newest vehicles on or off the planet is a true honor. With Kjell as our commander and Samantha and Jessica as our mission specialists, it's just going to continue to be an amazing crew and an amazing experience. I am really looking forward to the camaraderie and the time that we'll get to spend together as a crew, the friendships that we'll develop. And so I think continuing that process is one of the things that I'm looking most forward to. On launch day, I am 100% most looking forward to the kick in the pants when those rocket motors light and we are heading off the launch pad. It is going to be the culmination of a lifehood dream, something that just spend your entire life looking for and not ever sure that you're actually going to achieve it.
Our newest astronaut, Bob Hines.
Being an astronaut is an incredible responsibility as well as an incredible honor. Every astronaut recognizes the honor that comes with that, but also the responsibility that comes with representing not only our respective countries, but also the world. And one of the things that we hope to show is that regardless of our nationalities or our backgrounds, when we put our mind to a single mission and we get along, we can accomplish anything.
That you see the convoy
这边问下个月有没有重型的发射？没有，至少要6月。
assembly building where right now we've got a mega moon rocket inside the
最好
SLS
跳一下
Space AB.
有几秒钟的时差，正好跳一下，等到下一个的宇航员介绍吧。
There's our camera on the ground catching the shot, and you can hear the helicopter overhead.
他们已经，等一下，他们应该还要个几分钟才到发射场，应该是转运时间是20分钟整。
Now the crew convoy is approaching pad 39A, and that's an area known as the blast danger area, or BDA. And before any pad technicians, engineers, or astronauts
预报是57分到达发射台啊。
they conduct an internal go no go poll to make sure that area
还是要开20分钟。
对，20分钟，每个人给5分钟的介绍时间嘛，然后就把这个时间给耗掉了。
Exploring is about pushing the bounds of what we are capable of as humans. It gets at who we are intrinsically
对，
as
这个
people.
Jessica 跟
And
前
so
面那
because
个
of that,
飞
I
行
think
员
it
海
really
因
is
斯
something
都
that
是
unites all
第一
of
次
同
飞
一
us
行
届
together here
的
on
航
Earth.
天员。
同一届嘛，而且是。
My name is Jessica Watkins,
2017
and I'm
届
a mission specialist for NASA's SpaceX Crew
但是
4
他俩
mission
的
to
年
the
龄就差距
International
挺
Space
大的
Station.
了。
at a pretty early age, I got
他
kind
俩
of set
差了
on
13
the
岁。
idea of becoming an
看一下
astronaut. That was
他
when I
是
kind of first voiced the dream and
还好
interest in
13岁可以
space
接
and
受
in being an astronaut in particular.
Jessica 的话
My
是
parents
只有
always
33
stressed
岁，她
the
是1988
importance
年
of
出
getting
生。
a good education and
30
finding
就
something that you're
就觉得
passionate
蛮年
about.
轻。
And so finding
刚才那
geology,
个
finding
是
that love
47
of
岁吗？
mine, that passion was really a turning
14
point
岁
for me in my career.
可以。
My graduate work focused mostly on the geology of Mars. It was part of my interest in wanting to pursue internships at NASA and gave me that exposure to those different possibilities of what careers are possible in this planetary geology field. Deciding to be an astronaut is kind of setting out a dream for yourself and then kind of stowing it in the back of your head, at least in my case. So the day that I received the phone call to invite me to come down to Johnson Space Center and become an astronaut just really was truly a dream come true.
真的是同一届，22届宇航员。
And I still am waiting for somebody
所
to
以
pinch
他们
me
两个
and
都算
tell
是
me
资
that.
历很浅的宇航员。
The opportunity to be the first black woman on an International Space Station long-duration crew is exciting. It certainly is important to me and impactful to me to be able to be a part of the legacy that so many before me have paved the way to enable me to be here now. As much as I can be a small part of that legacy, I'm honored to have the opportunity.
她还算是一个黑人女性的第一，刚刚说是她是第一个长期要在国际空间站驻留的黑人女性，是吧？之前也有，但可能是不是长期的驻留。
应该是之前我怀疑是航天飞机的时候有，但是航天飞机不能长时间驻留国际空间站嘛。
哎，刚才叶子补充一下，说这个 Jessica 也是 Artemis 的人员之一啊。
哎，我不太清楚是不是17届的宇航员都有资格去参与 Artemis 的这个项目呀？
我不清楚。Artemis 当时也有一个人员公布的吧？当时对，好像有对他这个这个面孔，好像当时是有点印象。应该不是那么默认的，我估计啊。
Sometimes we run a little early or a little behind, but it looks like we're right on time at the moment.
是不是有几个公司在搞航天飞机？没有吧
At about T-2 hours and 35 minutes, the astronauts will ingress or climb into the
还真不太一样。我看了一下 Artemis 的这个 astronaut 里面就没有 Hines。
Making the turn there.
应该算宇航员，算是怎么说呢？算是算是工作，然后像 Artemis 和这种 Crew 系列的都算是具体的任务和工作，对吧？我也不知道。
There they are going around SpaceX's horizontal integration facility, Megan, and at this point,
发射前3小时。
Probably hard to see because it's so tall.
已经到发射台了，他们应该是路过那个火箭的机舱边上，然后看到那个前面那个轨道就是运输台的一个转运轨道吧。
And in a sense, you relax because you got there, you exhale, but also, wow, this next thing that you're about to do is even more amazing and exciting. And so the excitement is building, and of course the focus and attention that they're going to bring to all of the tasks ahead of them. And
他们还有时间介绍最后一个宇航员 Samantha 吗？可能会介绍，因为按照流程来说，他们从车里面出来之后，还会给他们一次最后上厕所的时间。
From our helicopter orbiting the launch pad 39A, you see the 3 vehicles down there in the lower left-hand corner. They have arrived. There's been a lot of upgrades to this launch pad, Megan. You flew it and flew out of there under both configurations.
Samantha 会讲中文哎，他刚刚上面说。
As an astronaut on Crew Dragon.
That's right. And we get an opportunity to tour the launch pad with a family member in the days leading up to the launch, which is really special. But other than that, we don't spend a whole lot of time on the launch pad. So getting to see it for us is always a very special thing as well. It does look very different now.
也直接补充了 Artimas 一期17，总共18个人。
Bones of it, of the historical structure that was there supporting all those shuttle launches.
Speaking of bones, that metal, black metal to the left, we're panning around it, but that is the old rotating service structure that used to have that gigantic structure that would, contain the cargo bay of the space shuttle, so you could get in and out of it, service it. It would rotate out. Still part of it there on the pad.
We're at T-minus 2 hours, 59 minutes. Crew have arrived at the pad. We are on schedule.
There's the announcement of the arrival, and before the crew makes their way to the elevator.
就是通告一下，到达发射场，然后是准时的。其实比预定时间还稍微提前几分钟。那最后用最后这点时间介绍最后一个宇航员 Samantha。他是意大利的，也是伊萨的宇航员。
My name is Samantha Cristoforetti, and I'm a mission specialist on the NASA SpaceX Crew-4 mission to the International Space Station. I was born in Milan, in Italy, but I grew up in a tiny little village in the northeastern Alps, still in Italy. So a very rural place, small place. In the mountains, I grew up skiing and enjoying My parents owned a hotel, so that's what they did all their working life. We actually lived in the hotel. It was our home. I started dreaming about becoming an astronaut pretty early on. I was still in elementary school. I think it was a number of impressions that made me dream about that, the things that I was learning in school, also books that I read. I was an avid reader of adventure books. The fact that I was growing up in a place where I had an opportunity to go out and play and explore with other kids unsupervised and get that passion for adventure. So a number of those things, and I guess they were enough to kindle that sparkle of passion for space exploration. I completed my high school in Italy, and then I enrolled at the Technical University of Munich in their engineering degree that chose the aerospace track. And then something unexpected happened. The opportunity opened up of actually joining the Italian Air Force as a pilot. That had not been possible for me straight out of high school because back then the Italian military did not admit women. The very broad educational and training background that I had when I became an astronaut really helped me a lot. And the astronaut job is really very much about this broad spectrum of things that you have to master rather than being a specialist that has mastered very, very well for a long time this one thing. And so I was very grateful in hindsight. In 2014, I had the opportunity of flying to space for the first time, and I spent 200 days on the International Space Station. Getting to space station, opening the hatch, hugging our
一个任务就是200天啊。
getting used to that sensation of floating.
这个在看他的维基页面上说是在17年以前，他是保持了最长在国际空间站驻留的时长的女性单次任务，后来是被打破了。
But it becomes more like a quiet affection for the place, for the work, for the people. Getting selected for Crew-4 was amazing because it's an opportunity to go back to the International Space Station and experience again that transformation from being an Earthbound creature to being this space-living creature.
对他那段时间的还是有影响，因为那段时间刚开始看航天相关内容嘛。那段时间他正好在刚开始了解航天的时候，他正好在国际空间站上，应该是。
Samantha Cristoforetti, the third consecutive ESA astronaut to ride aboard the Crew Dragon. It all began.
这边问发射架是不是空插建的啊？这个是3.9A 发射台嘛？这边这个发射塔的话是一个非常有历史意义、纪念意义的一个发射塔。那么是阿波罗时代就有的啊。空插是接管之后做了很多魔改，但是这个本身的建筑基底的是阿波罗计划时代就已经有了。
When it flies today, it'll be the 4th time
实际上也是因为这个原因啊，因为它这个是用旧的建筑改造而来，所以说，待会有个小细节就是宇航员是坐电梯到顶层之后，还要再走半层啊，才能到剑桥的高度啊。这也是因为就说是因为是改造而来的建筑嘛，所以空差火箭的进舱口的高度啊和它楼梯的设计不完全一致，所以差了半层的高度啊。
Right, it's an amazing capability that actually started with us. We, I think, were the first flight-proven booster launched a year ago, and so
竖起火箭那个叫火箭的支架塔嘛，支架塔、运输塔都可以吧？对，那个是在上一次发射时候，我是从 NASA SpaceX 那边听到的一个小知识啊，就是为什么3个发射场上的支架塔车后角都不一样，主要是因为是39A 发射台和40号发射台的支架塔是空差自己设计和制造的，而在那个梵登堡那边的支架塔呢，是用的是旧的支架塔，所以他们撤回的角度是不一样的。
Megan, how about we take some more questions from social media?
Sounds great.
You've been taking them throughout the night, and we will continue to do so here at T-minus 2 hours and 53 minutes and counting. And Andrew Pino wants to know, Megan MacArthur, what is your advice to students who are interested in becoming astronauts in the future? And I'm sure you get asked this one a lot.
I do get asked this question a lot. I remember asking the question when I was a student, wondering, well, how do I get this job, right? So it's an important question. It does change a little bit over the years.
这边在问有一个华裔是吗？是船长是华裔。
When you're looking to work as a professional astronaut, work for
我还是不大会发他的名字啊，他提到了，你听一下吧。
And that's going to involve looking at your schooling. What kinds of schooling did you partake in? And for the most part, it's going to be engineers, scientists, people with some kind of operational background. So what I mean by that is you are able to work in a technical field.
成为要想成为宇航员，首先你得念理科。
Sometimes pilots, it can be folks working on submarines. Oh, this is one of my favorite moments when the crew gets to first look up at their rocket. Ready to go.
这边是上完厕所了，出来看一下火箭。
That's right.
Bob looks a little giddy.
Yeah, he's pretty excited. Look at that rocket. Yep, I like that sort of characteristic. The lean back, the look up together. It's a good look.
And the wave as they get ready to get into the elevators to ride up to the top where the crew access arm is, which will take them to the spacecraft. It is the original elevators. They've been, of course, renovated, but those are the same elevators you got in, Megan, as both a shuttle astronaut.
对，这是这个月的第5发，这个月也就只有5发了，第6发是没了。那么这个月总共是 NROL 85，然后是星链，还有是 XM1，还有就是 Crew-4，还有一发什么来着？
Do not work as solo agents for the most part. It's really about your team skills, which can both be leadership skills and followership skills, and the ability to do both things. So my advice, wherever you're at in school, is seek out those team projects, whether they're part of your formal education or there's something that you want to do on the side that you and your friends develop together. Those team experiences where you're working together to build something and operate something are really valuable.
Transporter 4也是这个月发射的。
As we see the first 2 astronauts make their way up out of the elevators and towards the crew access arm. Some fist pumps.
这个月有没有？对，下一发星链是不是也是这个月啊？
And then they'll make their way over to a telephone for a last call. Well, a last call before they leave Earth.
That's right. Yeah.
To their family members.
可能是对，星链好像。因为它的载荷区已经发出来了，应该是快了。对，那这个月还是有可能有6发的吧。
There's that bend back look again. There should be a name for that move.
There should be.
We'll see if we can come up with one. But
we should name it.
Yeah.
Samantha and Jessica there. How about just lean back look?
You got to feather rocket in there somehow.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm going to work on that, Megan. I'll get with you later.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah.
So on the right-hand side, we have Samantha and Jessica getting ready.
那么你可以看到，这个宇航员这会儿正在用那个一个固定座机啊，在打电话。
Phone call. There's a phone there. It has very large buttons for dialing the numbers. Because you've got those big gloves on.
Got those big gloves on, that's right. And of course,
这个其实就算是这种固定座机打电话，这种是属于远古的东西啊，远古的时代产物，但是也是出于人文情怀，是把它保留下来了，作为一个每次宇航员进舱之前的一个传统。就这个座机和当时就是阿波罗计划那个时代，就是一模一样的座机保留下来。
memorize phone numbers, right? We all get them out of our mobile phones.
That's
so.
right.
They've thought of everything, though. Someone's got it written down.
You know, and we should expect nothing less.
发射到3点多。
You can see the chevrons on the ground and the direction that they point. Those have a.
T0是接近4点，3点52分。
Directing in the event of a contingency where there are people on the launch pad.
或者53分。
Chevrons are one signal, a visual signal that's easy to see if there's darkness or smoke.
其实不确定的话，可以看一下左上角的倒计时嘛。好，2位女宇航员也上来了。
And now our mission specialists have caught up.
我也去弄点吃的，喝饮料。
So it looks like Bob Hines is having a nice little conversation there. This is a beautiful shot from our helicopter, looking at the top of the launch tower, and the crew access arm to the right goes out to the rocket. You looked at that view. It's nighttime, and we are in a national wildlife refuge, so I imagine there's not a whole lot to see, but still.
It is pretty special, and you're sort of realizing this is as close as I'm going to get to nature for a while. Yeah. And so it's a special feeling. You get a little bit of breeze on your face, and that's a special feeling as well. Things that you're going to miss when you're closed up inside the International Space Station.
Samantha and Jessica taking advantage of exactly what you just said, the chance to look out at planet Earth one last time before getting inside Crew Dragon. And I heard the astronauts from Crew-3 talking the other day about what they missed, and they were such earthly things, Thomas Marshburn talked about wanting to just have the wind blow in his face.
Yes.
They talked about a hot bath.
I went running in the rain, and it felt wonderful. I just had a smile on my face the whole time with, rain running down my face and down my neck and into my clothes, but it felt like, yep, I'm here on Earth. This is good.
Space is awesome to visit, but it's nice to come back home, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
If you're just joining us, you are watching live coverage of NASA's SpaceX mission known as Crew-4. Good evening and welcome to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Daryl Nail, along with a recent pilot aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon, the voice of NASA astronaut Megan McArthur. She is here and giving us great insight into the mission today.
Thanks, Daryl. I just really enjoy watching them go through this and remembering what it was like for us, but as well knowing that they're going to have their own individual take on it, their individual experience, and just seeing already the camaraderie, the relationships between the crew members, and knowing that they're going to have such a fun and successful time up there.
Walking down the crew access arm comes Bob Hines and Kjell Lindgren. We see them inside, and the shot to the left from the outside.
Love that shot.
The closeout team not far behind. They have some work to do to get them inside. And now our mission specialists have the opportunity to make that phone call. We are T-minus 2 hours and 45 minutes and counting until the liftoff of Crew-4 from the Kennedy Space Center. This is now a look inside the White Room.
我又回来了，现在什么情况？好，播报了是到达接近室，也其所谓的接近室就是在进舱前的这个走道。好，现在是做也是另外一个传统，宇航员在 在剑桥尽头的墙壁上签名。看，就是如果镜头给过来的话，是在那个墙上是有一个 NASA 图标的，他会在绕着那个 NASA 图标的每次宇航员进去之前签个名，然后是逐渐会把这个签名墙给积累起来。好，这边问直升机回收的火箭呢是 Rocket Lab， 就火箭实验室。他们那次我也想看的，就是推迟了嘛。他们第一次要尝试做那个直升机火箭回收的话，应该还是会看一下的，还是值得看一看的。到时候应该有机会的话就做一下直播。
Here come our next 2 astronauts.
感谢。对，如果不推迟的话，反正应该就是后天了。
Were you able to hear the call that you made? Were you able to hear?
It's difficult because again you can't get the receiver up inside your helmet against your ear, and so once your family realizes that, then they're essentially shouting. It's not time for a nuanced conversation.
哎，这个我之前不知道，这个是 Maggie 这边做主播说的，因为他自己有使用那个固定电话经验嘛。说的是这个，他们说传说中是最后一次跟家人通话，但是因为他们是隔着一个头盔嘛，所以用这个座机的时候其实听不清楚啊。所以更像是单方面的喊话。好，就是过剑桥的一个画面。Jessica 和 Samantha。哎，这个画面就拍得很帅气啊。
Well, Samantha is saying something, not sure what she's saying, but she is smiling.
I think they could about smile their way into space.
Just on the energy alone.
That's right.
因为发射过程是很漫长的嘛，所以如果有什么需要嘛，那么就反正尿布呗，那还能怎么样？但值得一提的是，他们刚到发射场的时候，对吧？刚下车之后呢，是有一次上厕所的机会的，所以他们应该是这4个人应该都是刚刚排干净。另外的话是在龙飞船接近国际空间站这段时间里面，那么龙飞船里面上面是有马桶的。但是穿着宇航服是没办法用马桶的，应该是，但是在重要的环节之外啊，其实着装是比较随意的。重要的环节就是可能出意外情况，就像是上升过程啊，就大体发射过程和对接过程，这个时候是你要求要穿宇航服，但其他时候都是可以穿便服的。对，刚加进来的朋友们，这是 Crew-4啊，第4次常规化向国际空间站运送宇航员的一个任务，也是空差的第7次载人发射任务。吃点东西啊，像这种长时间的发射，不很点零食真是过不下去。可以看到，刚墙壁上2个图标，左边是 NASA 的图标，右边是 SpaceX 自己的图标。我们这次是 NASA 的宇航员，所以说是签在 NASA 那一侧。如果是 SpaceX 这边负责的话，完全是跟 NASA 没关系的，也签在 SpaceX 这一侧。
Starting to ingress the Dragon vehicle and get ready for their journey to the International Space Station. Just a quick clarification, the journey will be about 16 hours long once they lift off this.
这是船长是华裔啊，就是这位戴眼镜的这一位。
Right about in the middle of what we've seen for most of these missions, they can be as short as 8 if we end up getting a basically a phasing angle that works really
我
well.
的
It
去，
can be as
我
long
不然
as
我也要
8
喷了。
so about 16 hours will be nice. But right now they're ingressing.
哎，
the
待会儿这个
capsule
眼
is
镜会不会
narrowed
摘
in.
掉？
We've
应该
got
会摘
Jessica
掉吧。
Watkins still out here in the White Room. White Room is kind of their last stop.
ISS 的就是全称是 International Space Station， 是国际空间站的意思啊。
The Dragon interior as clean of an environment as possible, keep out all the moisture, the humidity from that Florida weather. And so each of the crew members, they're doing the signing. They're also getting what's known as a FOD check, a foreign object debris check,
快签完一圈
making
了
sure that they're not bringing
签完一圈之后是不是再往外面一
particles,
圈
things like that, and
签
that
的？
could interfere with the umbilicals or any of the different systems, because anything that goes in that capsule is going to space for the next 6 months.
Really exciting to see Jessica Watkins and Samantha Cristoforetti signing their names. And they
好，
do
签血下注了，待会说发射的时候眼镜不会摘。
have the Sharpie ready for them, so that they can
问题倒确实也
do
不
this
大。
signing before they
坐
ingress
过
the
山车的
Dragon
时候
vehicle.
眼镜也不是一定要摘的。
Looks like now they both have signed their signatures, and next steps is to start ingressing the Dragon capsule.
We've got Kjell and Bob in already, and when we get a look in through the hatch, the seats are numbered 1 through 4. So when you're looking
对，
at
名
the
字已经
hatch,
多
it
起来
goes
了。
right to left.
就是 NASA 这一侧的话，
So
已
all the
经
way on the
有
right will be
Demo
seat
2、
1.
Crew 1，就
And
Crew
that's
1
where
到
Samantha
4嘛。
Cristoforetti is bound,
所以
just
Crew
below
1到
that
4的话
is
就
seat
是
number 2,
16个宇航员，
and
加上
the
前
inner
2次
seat,
那么就
Kjell
是
Lindgren,
18 个
our
宇航
seat
员的
there.
名字嘛。
Next to that, the pilot
所以
seat,
其
seat
实已
number
经积累
3.
了不少
Bob
了。
Hines is going to be riding uphill, and then Jessica Watkins will be in seat 4 all the way on the left. And these seats have a connection point to the suits. They've got an umbilical, basically a hose almost, that plugs into the leg of the suits, and that provides a couple of really critical functions for the suit. It gives them a hardline
其实我有
connection
一
to
个
communications.
我有个猜测，我刚才就是已经在想这个
It
猜测
also
了，
provides the
但
capability
可能
to
现在
flow
说有
just
点晚，
conditioned
就
cabin
感觉
air
这次
to
的宇
help
航
them
服
stay cool.
它脖子活动范围是不是比以前要多了一点？
blue box we saw them carrying earlier. But then one of the really critical ones,
好像脖子是有一定的活动，有一定的活动范围的。因为印象中特别深刻的是 Demo 2的时候，最早那次的时候，它宇航员脖子这个部位应该是基本上是没有什么活动空间的。所以说他们会有那个特别跟尴尬的、很著名的弯角来仰望火箭的那个姿态嘛。这是他们在火箭下方的时候，好像隐约的是有抬头的感觉的啊，就是脖子这个部位好像真的是可以动的。是不是一个宇航服的小的细节上的改进？不确定，我不是很确定。
And every part of this process is very precise. You did see as the crew ingress through the hatchway, the suit techs even put their hand over their helmet. That's a part of the procedure, again, to make sure that they don't damage anything as they enter the vehicle. Same with as they're putting together their harnessing. Again, every step of this process is very precise, and we might be able to see it in a minute here, but they do have some tablets and some pads with them where the crew can follow along with every procedure, every step of the way.
And we were just looking at Kjell Lindgren. He's seen this entire process from up close before. We saw Zena Cardman. She's the ASP, the astronaut support personnel for this one. Kjell did it back on Crew 1. And got some internet notoriety as he was the SpaceX ninja that had 2 umbrellas as it was a rainy day. So getting a little fame from that one. But so he did that for the Crew 1. So this is not his first trip down this walkway, but this time he's going to be strapping in and heading uphill. So they're getting strapped in. They've got a 5-point harness that's going to be secured throughout the entire ascent portion. They're going to be in their suits until they're on orbit. They're going to wear these suits for all of the different, what we call dynamic phases of flight. So that's where the vehicle's actively making maneuvers, and so that's obviously going to be launching.
刚刚其中一个宇航员没有听清楚是谁啊？之前是 Crew 1的就是服务人员。就你看现在看的这所谓的黑色忍者，这边当中有一个宇航员，当初是Crew 1任务当中其中之一啊。 这次角色互换啊，就是他成为了宇航员被绑在座位上的接受捆绑 play 的成员之一。就是在 Crew-1 的时候，不知道是哪一位宇航员，没有听漏掉了，是负责帮宇航员绑定的，就是发射场服务人员之一嘛。这次是角色对调了。所以现在我看到这2个忍者，说不定也有未来的宇航员。
They kind of go hand in hand with their custom suits, and the suits are basically an extension of the Dragon vehicle.
这不是 Jessica 的声音吗？
So pretty cool. They get their own custom-made seats, custom-made suit, which is almost like their own personal AC system.
Yeah, we'll see them get strapped in, and then there's, as Jesse said, there's a couple of events that we're gonna listen to and we're gonna see take place. Those communication checks will come up. We'll hear the core. That's essentially the voice of Mission Control Hawthorne.
按照流程上讲的话，确定把每个宇航员都绑定好了之后，然后应该是会有个几轮的通讯检查，然后呢再是有关闭舱门，应该是先旋转座椅还是关闭舱门？先旋转座椅，然后再关闭舱门，然后再做气密性检查，同时做更多的通讯检查等等。关闭舱门之后的话，气密性检查结束之后，就是很长的一段通讯检查，然后就是等着加转，之后就会有一段比较无聊的时间。这也是因为他们要预留一部分冗余的时间，如果出现什么问题的话，那么也就是说可以有这多的时间可以大家用。像是 Crew-2 的时候还是 Crew-1 的时候吧，应该是有一次气密性检查出问题啊，所以他们又重新进行了一段气密性检查，那次就把冗余的时间用掉了。所以你看，现在还有2个半小时时间，其实是预留了大概有差不多1个小时时间是多出来，几乎完全就是多出来的。
So we saw them do that in the suit-up room a little while ago. Now that they're actually on board Dragon, able to integrate into the systems, use the umbilicals, they'll do another leak check, and then the crew will be one step closer to launch.
And really exciting to see if you're just now joining us, the Crew-4 astronauts.
空舱这边可能就派出了 Jessica， 目前为止，暂时。流程上一般来说是主要是2个 NASA 的主持人，然后 NASA 这边不是空舱这边感觉是让 Jessica 是作为一个类似嘉宾的感觉出场，当然主持人和嘉宾也是得互相轮着搞，不然的话是马拉松式的直播也是很累。
And again, as Dan mentioned, they will be doing some comm checks here shortly once they are all settled in into their seats.
And once we get to those checks, you'll see them using their armrests. That's where they have a couple of different buttons. One is to actually enable that communication. They can change their Vox settings, their audio.
这就是各种着装检查和座椅固定的检查。
Just for volume levels, things like that inside the helmet.
待会还有像是舱内服的加压气密性检查、通讯检查等等之类的，然后才有座椅的旋转，然后这是关舱门等等。
Rotate the seats by a little less than 30 degrees to put them in the launch position, and this is to orient them just for the best position for managing the G loads on the way uphill. It also gives them direct access to those displays.
这样补充了一下。这个华裔，也就这次指挥官是，也是 Demo 2的后备人员嘛，是叶子不同的一个小信息。现在在讲话的是 Jessica 都不熟悉，你这是不是老粉
？That display, those display screens above the pilot and commander seat. Those gloves.
新建为什么还不飞？新建还差很多工作吧？但我知道网上抱怨的比较多的是 FAA 的环境审核批准还没有下来啊，估计而且本来说是这个月底，但应该还要延迟。但同时的话，新建确实还是有很多工作没有做好的。反正我的意见的话，就是新建要飞之前的话，肯定要是做整合的 试彩排啊，就加注彩排，然后会整合的静态点火这些过程肯定是要做的。到目前为止的话是，现在一个最新进展是，那么超重在 BN7在最新的一次加注彩排当中是就是损坏了，中间的输液管算是被压坏了，所以肯定还要再重新做一次加注实验，可能要么就是修复，要么就是直接换成 BN8，不确定。BN7会不会报废不确定啊，应该是现在肯定在做修理的尝试，因为它是被推回那个机舱里面的嘛。所以其实新建的话，准备工作保守估计还要1个月，保守估计，今年上半年飞的可能性微乎其微。个人觉得。好，你说另外的2个主持吧，另外2个主持是NASA 的嘛？男的那个主持人不知道谁，那个女的主持人是宇航员 Maggie 叫什么来着？好像是 Crew-2的吧。反正应该是另一位 NASA 的那边的主持人的话是NASA 的宇航员，应该是飞过龙飞船的 Maggie 应该是 Crew-2的，我不是很确定。这边在问有个星期被风刮坏的，你是说那个 B1069吗？69是回程的时候，因为是在海面被在海面的晃动之下是砸到船上被爆菊了。那个不知道，好像反正现在情况是没有听到 B1069的任务安排，离他的复出应该还有一段距离。B1069回来之后才过了4个月吧，他如果是而且是坏的比较严重，这个估计有的好修了，估计再过几个月说不定就有消息了。
So far, we've had a pretty on-time schedule today. The crew, we did watch.
对 B1069还是比较可惜啊，因为那是第一次飞行的时候回来的时候就被爆菊了，就是也算是坏的比较严重的一次。也是因为这个原因嘛，就是你看今年，在上一次星链发射之前，应该是所有的星链都是往南向发射的，就是因为是北边的冬季。海面情况、天气情况确实比较恶劣，空差也算是买个教训了。刚才播报应该是就需要进行做通讯检查了。其实也是蛮无聊的，反正就是会。有个几轮的通讯检查，之后应该就是座椅旋转吗？猛禽2是老马在什么时候啊？有一段时间了，发过一些说法，就说像猛禽2的技术难点之一啊，就说是，就是燃烧室的外壁，要保证不会熔毁之类的问题啊。他举过几个例子啊。具体怎么样不好说啊，但是我觉得应该会到时候会比较说明问题的，应该是超重的静点。我们可以看，如果说是有超重的全引擎静点的话，那么到时候会说明问题。如果说会有一次超重30几个引擎同时点火，然后并且通过了，甚至会点火1次、2次、3次的静点的话，然后所有的引擎都没出问题，那么你可以说猛禽确实已经处于一个比较好的状态了。那现在是各种通讯检查，因为按照之前的在星舰上的静点经验的话，猛禽的故障率还是很高的。所以我们能看到一次30几个引擎如果全部完好的通过静点的话，那么应该就是可以说那就算是一个非常 实质性的提高了。到时候观察一下，观察就知道了。
So we're through the first, the umbilical check. Now they're going to check through ground stations. SpaceX operates a suite of ground stations across the planet.
这边在说，好像还有一个空差的声音，听上去像是空差主持人是吧？来听一下。
Along with the primary one, those teachers
Andy Train 吗
relay satellites.
Freedom, SpaceX, com check.
我不确定，可能有点像。
Freedom has you loud and clear. Core loud and clear. Ground station com check is complete. Stand by for teachers com check. Freedom standing by.
嗯，漩涡又不知道跑哪去了。他那边直播有人在讲话，他在讲话吗？不知道。唉，这会儿还是有点东西可以看的。等舱门封闭结束之后，就会有一段比较长的无聊时间。如果说一切顺利的话，应该说是一切顺利的话，那么待会儿可能会有比较长的，因为多出来的荣誉时间嘛。刚刚说什么？哦，对，这次你会经常听到 Freedom 这个词啊，因为这个词是龙飞船是这次使用的是一个新的龙飞船，已经被命名为了 Freedom。Freedom 也是很有美国特色的一个词啊。其实这个命名我感觉跟这个时期也有点关系啊，我这个就不多说了。还在追问，空差的另一个男主播吗？可能是 Andy Train 啊，我不是，但要看镜头才知道。如果是亚裔的空差的主播的话，那么应该就是 Andy Train。可能我刚刚没有注意到有空差直播室的画面啊。切过去的话应该就能看到。好，那么是这一轮的通讯检查就结束了，接下来的事件是要准备座椅旋转了，那也就是把座椅大概调整一个30度不到的角度啊。你现在看，其实飞行员和船长操作屏幕的角度是有点尴尬的，它座椅旋转起来之后呢，其实角度就比较合适了。宇航员一般来说呢，是为了上升过程中一个最好的受力分布啊，用背去承压去，那么就说是基本上都是朝上做的。几乎是躺着的。
Really no issues in work as the countdown continues smoothly. We heard updates from the team that things are on schedule several times, which is always a good thing for liftoff. The Dragon launch ops team has
对，这个声音绝对是 Andy Train， 对，你是对的。这个弹幕催了我好几次，说那个应该是有空差的男主播，对，这个声音是 Andy Train。
And you just heard the call out that we are beginning seat rotation, and if we keep this camera view, you should see the astronauts
好，座椅旋转开始了。
And be in their launch configuration. And there it goes. Some waves.
这个30度不到的调整。
This does a couple of things. This gets them first and foremost ready for when we do ignite the Merlin engines on the first stage for ascent, but it also gives the pilot and the commander access and better visibility to the LCD screen.
眼镜的话，应该只是普通眼镜吧。我觉得眼镜这个东西，因为是太常见了嘛，完全普及化的民众用品的话，航天也不可能做得更好。除非有什么特别的不能用要求，因为眼镜没什么特别的嘛，没什么特别要求， 所以应该可能还是民间做的会比较好。那么接下来是舱内服的一个密闭性测试吧，可能是。等他们把头罩给放下来了，那么说明。刚才播报是确认一下，座椅调整已经结束了。你看这个时候，那么船长和飞行员操作屏幕的角度就特别合适了。这个问猎鹰9号改进了，我不知道说的是什么意思啊。
Okay, we copy. We are go and 4.103.1 for suit leak preparation.
那么好，那么是要做舱内服的气密性检查，所以把头罩都开下来。那么舱内服稍微加一下压，然后看一下能不能维持住这个压强，来做一个气密性的检查。气密性检查一般都是要花一点时间的，因为它就是要观察个几分钟，看看就气压能不能保持稳定嘛。
So the clock continues to count down. We are at T-minus 2 hours and 18 minutes until liftoff. But as this continues to count down, we're going to check in with Chelsea at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas.
Hey, thanks and welcome to the International Space Station's Flight Control Room here in Mission Control Houston. A team of flight controllers behind me is actively monitoring the space station as we speak. The crew in orbit has completed a number of tasks to prepare the station for Crew-4, like setting up tools to monitor Dragon's arrival and prepping the sleep stations for Crew-4. Many of their clothes and other belongings launched on previous cargo resupply launches and are at the station now. But back here in Houston, Flight Director Anthony Varia and his team are in constant communication
稍微给休斯顿指挥中心那边放一下。那么像这种任务的发射指挥中心呢，一般是有3个啊，就是空舱那边的，还有发射场这边的，还有就是休斯顿这边的。休斯顿这边的这会儿是等于是基本上根本没他们什么事情。他们是升空以后，尤其是到了快和国际空间站对接的时候啊，那么休斯顿呢才会忙起来。这会儿他们其实不用他们管什么事情。看播报是那个宇航服气密性检查开始了。
We are ready for another beautiful crew launch. Got Megan MacArthur here, the pilot from Crew-2 and a space shuttle astronaut. We're so grateful that you're here sharing your insight and your stories.
Thanks. It's really fun to be here and watch them go through all of these activities step by step, and excited to see everything that comes up.
Brings back memories, doesn't it?
It sure
does,
yeah.
You were sitting in that seat?
Yeah.
Remember you were playing a game.
We were playing a game, yes. There is a fair amount of time where nothing specific is happening, and so of course you're taking your job seriously. You do review some things that might happen and how you would respond, but you also just have some time to kill. So we did have some games that Thomas Pesquet was in charge of keeping us entertained during that downtime.
Thomas was great for that.
He was like our cruise director.
这边这个问题不错，就火箭我还没说过，这次火箭是 V1067.4啊，第4次飞行。那么之前应该是最早是一次 CRS 任务，就说是向国际空间的货运补给任务啊 ，CRS 22开始的，然后之后呢也是飞行了 Crew-3和 TurkeySat 5B 任务啊，这是他第4次飞行，所以他其实上一次的宇航员也是这个同一枚火箭发上去的。
But it is difficult from that other position to see and interact with the screens. And so with the seats raised like that, they are tilted a little bit more.
这次不是旅游，这次是 NASA 的任务，就是正儿八经的半年的长期任务嘛，交班。就 就是这是 Crew-4 嘛，然后是去接 Crew-3的班。也是基本上现在就说像 Crew 系列的，好像现在的感觉就是每次都是半年去换一班啊，这样的一个比较稳定的一个步调。那么我们国家其实也差不多是也要做一样类似的步调吧，就是半年换一批宇航员，差不多是这样的感觉。
Crew-4 is the fourth crew rotation flight for the SpaceX Dragon vehicle.
这次没有俄罗斯的宇航员。上次是不是有的？上次 Crew-3是有的吧？但这个你不用去猜这里面有没有什么时局的影响，因为像这种任务的话，都是宇航员的名单都是非常非常早就已经定好了，一般都是提前1年多定好的，所以最近的形势对宇航员的成员肯定是没有影响。Crew-3也没有吧？但是 Crew-2有一次吗？有一个。我印象中是到目前为止应该是发过，龙飞船发过一次1名俄罗斯宇航员吧，可能是。啊，是 Crew-5吗
？Was amazing because it's an opportunity to go back to the International Space Station and experience.
你现在其实现场画面你记得你可以看啊，就说是发射场的服务人员应该在检查舱门啊，这是为待会儿做舱门关闭的一个准备吧。之前也有一次因为是舱门的边界上有个小的异物卡到了，导致气飞行检查失败了。所以他们之后呢，应该是对舱门的保护和检查都变得更加小心了。目前还没有龙飞船做，也还没有俄罗斯宇航员做过龙飞船啊，好吧。那看来之前看到只是一个乘组的宣布吧，可能。印象果然还是不够准啊，感谢各位查证。
The connecting element between all the experiments that we do up there is the space environment and specifically weightlessness.
其实你像现在的时局的话，虽然两边喊的都很响，但是到目前为止，航天上面的合作还是进行的比较顺利的，到还没有出现任何实质性的改变。但将来确实不好说，也不是不好说吧，将来肯定是比较悲观的，这种大合作时代可能真的要结束了。
We do so much research up there that not only helps technologies and development down here on Earth, but it is also aiding NASA's pivot back into deep space exploration.
The work that we do every day helps us to better understand how the human body changes in weightlessness.
一三的没意义。对，这种属于开发中的项目的话，基本上就是能合作下去的可能性就很难了。
On the lunar surface and on our way to Mars.
We get this awesome opportunity to be representatives of humanity, of all of you, and we don't take that lightly. We're super honored to have that responsibility and are excited about sharing the journey with all of you.
到目前为止，像这种讨论中的东西呢，还好，就没什么戏了。就是像是国际空间站这种已经比较常规化的运营的话，到目前为止还没有什么特别明显的改变，包括之前的那个预定的升轨啊都没有什么问题啊。对，上周六呢，其实国际空间站有一次碎片规避动作啊，就说是，那么俄罗斯那边也是很合作的，就是让国际空间站进行了一个升轨啊，是出于对碎片的一个规避啊，虽然也很讽刺，这次上个周末导致国际空间站升轨规避的碎片，又是最近俄罗斯打卫星的那一次的碎片。
projects, but it really, I think, helps you adapt to the environment the sooner you start learning to work in it.
对，往外盘又跳来跳去，又对，还跟印度确实好像是有说签了新的发射合同，对吧？跟红杉这边应该也是会发吧，不知道。
That's coming up a little bit later in the show, but we are currently T-minus 2 hours, 10 minutes and counting, so let's head back out to SpaceX headquarters in California, where Dan and Jesse will be picking up our commentary.
等一下，这谁？ 刚才的声音确实绝对是 Andy Train， 现在这边换了一个人啊，不，这边是 NASA 和空差的合作直播哈，看上去，刚才确实有 Andy Train 的声音啊。这个左边这个谁？我有点懵啊。
Now, since Demo 2 in May of 2020, SpaceX has been regularly flying crewed missions for NASA at the cadence of about
对，刚才听声音应该是空差这边是有 Jessica 和 Andy Train 做直播的，现在左边是换了一个人。
Demo 2 and 3 previous operational crewed missions to the space station. Now, will also be SpaceX's 7th crewed spaceflight overall, including Inspiration 4, the first all-civilian mission to space. Now, Inspiration 4 was really a historic first, and what's really exciting is it certainly will not be the last of its kind. Now, in fact, Jared Isaacman, commander of the Inspiration 4 mission, will return to orbit with SpaceX under the Polaris program.
这个 Jared 实在是太屌了，圈粉。
Deep space exploration while raising global awareness for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Polaris will consist of up to 3 human spaceflight missions that will culminate in the first flight of SpaceX's Starship with humans on board. Now, the first mission, Polaris Dawn, is targeted for no earlier than the 4th quarter of this year, and in addition to Mission Commander Jared Isaacman, will include pilot Scott Kidd Poteet, who served as the mission director of Inspiration 4, mission specialist Sarah Gillis, and mission specialist medical officer Anna Menon. During the Polaris Dawn mission, Jared will perform the first ever commercial spacewalk. The mission is also flying higher than any Dragon mission to date, and endeavoring to
已经决定了吗？是由 Jared 做舱外行走。哎，果然这个荣誉是不能让掉的。我确实可能也是他最合适。那么刚才听到的可能新的消息，也相对比较新的消息，可能是北极星1的时间可能是不早于第4季度啊。然后呢是 Jared 好像是已经被内定预定是做舱外行走的人了，毕竟是老板。对，而且比较有意思啊，对，这次的发射也是2男2女，然后北极星1呢也是2男2女，而且北极星的除了 Jared 以外的3个宇航员呢，都是第一次就是 Inspiration 4的一个等于是后勤人员吧。Jared 超屌的，就是很会冒险的那种。And again, they spent more than 10 days in orbit, including an extended stay on board the International Space Station. 这 Jared 是非常有冒险精神的一个人。人家兴趣是开飞机啊，业余兴趣开飞机，因为业余兴趣还开展了一个战斗机的训练公司啊，为军方做服务的。自己本人的话 ，Jared 本人是2度刷了环全球最短全球飞行的记录啊，是一个很屌的人。对啊 ，Jared 他只是个人兴趣开飞机玩玩，后来就各种买飞机，还发展美国最大的个人飞机舰队吧，将近100架飞机呢，他手上有。然后把自己上去肯定要很晚喽。确实 Jared 会更合适一点，更年轻也更有拼劲，而且就是这方面感觉体质方面就更强一点。
All right, thank you very much, Dan. As we await side hatch closure, you can see the teams working there. Hatch still open.
应该是快到关闭舱门的时候了。老马，你不要他睡了，你就看老马那个肚子啊，他肯定不是属于身体素质很优秀的那一类的，我觉得。我上次看过了，就是 Jared 他手上他确实是因为他手上的飞机呢是蛮多的，他那个公司的话，他手上那个公司确实是 美国私人公司最大的一个飞行舰队啊，但是不到100架，应该是不到100架的军机啊，但是70-80架吧。Jessica 一开始就在吧
My name is Kjell Lindgren, and I'm the commander for NASA's SpaceX
开始第2轮的宇航员介绍了，这是指挥官、指挥长，那么是一个华裔啊。他名字好难念啊，我看看有没有中文名。看看有没有。有中文名的，中文名是林奇儿。哇。
Farmer and Samantha and Wadi, they are incredible astronauts, and I feel very grateful
简称小林啊。
team with them. But we're one small part of a larger
小林都快50岁的人。
the nation and the world.
商业太空站前景为何？可以吧，我不是很确定。主要是空间站这个东西还算有用，但是非常非常烧钱啊。所以 NASA 这个对 NASA 来说是也早就不想搞了。其实 NASA 感觉还是比较有兴趣做那种前沿的有拓展性的事情，像成熟化的东西，其实好像 NASA 是不愿意做的。就是像国际空间站，虽然它有很大的价值，但是确实也蛮燃烧经费的，所以他希望是把这个东西呢变成一个成熟化的可商业经营的东西，让商业组织去做这些的事情，然后 NASA 可以腾出手和经费来做其他事情。这个是 Bob Hines 这次的飞行员，这次介绍好像稍微简短一点。龙飞船当国际空间站，当空间站太小了，太小了。
I can't wait to pilot this vehicle. It is an incredible honor and something that I never in my wildest dreams thought would be a possibility. On launch day, I am 100% most looking forward to the kick in the pants when those rocket motors light and we are heading off the launch pad.
运输工具和长期的太空轨道驻留器还是侧重还是很不一样的。
That's right.
In seat number 1 today is mission specialist and NASA astronaut Jessica Watkins, who will be making her first trip to space today.
My name is Jessica Watkins, and I'm a mission
那么这
specialist
次
for
是任务专家之一
NASA's
Jessica
Crew-4 mission to the
Watkins。
International Space Station.
这个和刚才那个 Bob Hines 是同期的，两个都是2017年入选 NASA 宇航员，然后这是他们的第一次飞行，第一次太空飞行。
Important to me and impactful to me to be able to be a part of the legacy that so many before me have paved the way to enable me to be here now. As much as I can be a small part of that legacy, I'm honored to have the opportunity. Being selected to be a part of this Crew-4 mission is truly an honor. We get this awesome opportunity to be
空差确实是拿新舰去竞标过商业空间站的，然后没有入选。我个人也想，真的是觉得那个方案确实水了一点，感觉空差都没花什么心思。
And last but not least, in seat number 4 is Crew-4 mission specialist and European Space Agency astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti.
新舰大是大，但也不说大了就行了，对吧？这个还是蛮复杂的这个问题。
I had this feeling that the whole universe just stopped, turned around and smiled at me. My name is Samantha Cristoforetti, and I'm a mission specialist.
Samantha， 这是她的第2次太空飞行啊，之前她是ESA的宇航员，为5国语言好像是。她也会中文。然后她之前的一次飞行是直接在空间站上住了200天啊。 之前还维持了一段时间是最长时间在太空中驻留的女宇航员，这个脸其实蛮熟悉的，就是她以前上次在国际空间站驻留那个面庞，就我特别眼熟，因为是我刚开始看 航天相关的时候，那段内容时期呢，是他正好在国际空间站上，然后有很多他做直播啊和拍摄等等的。哦 ，Andy Tree 确实是的，笑死了！刚才你看我镜头给到 Andy Tree， 他是在抠指甲，然后没有注意到。Andy Tree 还是在的啊，原来他不是和杰斯克坐在一起，只是可能好好玩。刚才那已经算一个小的直播事故了。
Absolutely, the time that you spend in training, even though it's shortened in some cases, is really special. You know that you're doing something unique and difficult, and you know you're going to really be in a lot of situations where you rely on one another. And so forming those friendships and those bonds are really going to serve them well over the next 6 months.
Providing us the insight and the explanations throughout this launch broadcast. Megan MacArthur on hand here, shuttle astronaut, Crew 2 pilot on the Dragon. We want to remind you, you can ask your question right there at the bottom of your screen.
我不是一开始就在的，我开始要去吃点东西。
Ask NASA into Twitter and send us a tweet. And once we see it, we'll go through them and pass them along to her. She's been answering them all evening, and keep those questions coming. In the meantime, let's get over to Andy at SpaceX headquarters for a launch operations update.
现在转过到 Andy 那边。刚才切到他这边来的时候，他没准备好，那边救场救了一下。
On board the brand new Dragon spacecraft Freedom, we heard the communication checks between the Dragon team and the
我刚开始这次直播刚开的时候是挂着的嘛，然后是自己先去吃了点东西嘛。毕竟这么长的直播嘛，还可以理解。现在是发射前2个小时啊，如果一切都很顺利的话，那待会会有一段很长的无聊的时间，到时候大家又可以去吃点东西和上厕所之类的。
Then the closeout team will leave the pad at T-minus 1 hour, leaving just the astronauts on the pad. As for the Falcon 9 team, they are on console in firing room 4. They are preparing the communication checks with the astronauts that is due in just a few minutes here. SpaceX engineers have pressurized the launch vehicle gas storage bottles. These are composite overwrap pressure vessels. They contain gases used to fill the tanks with hot helium as propellant is drained out of the first and second stages during the
新空间站嘛
descent.
，Axiom 的方案是先是做空间现在国际空间站的舱段，然后之后再独立出去啊。这个方案其实经济性上面看的话也是还可以的。对啊，载人就是要唠嗑啊。话说炫火现在还在干嘛？哎，炫火肯定是不知道在干嘛，他去玩去了，他估计是待会儿快发射才会跑回来。
We continue to monitor weather at launch sites and around the world at contingency abort and landing zones. But right now everything is green. So with that, we are at T-minus 1 hour, 57 minutes and counting. Everything's looking good here, so I'll send it back to you, Daryl and Megan.
All right, Andy, and thank you. Back here at the Kennedy Space Center, the weather is fantastic. We've got a cool evening and calm conditions, which is perfect for launch. As we look at the
炫火在他的直播间里有在讲话吗？ 我这里切过去看就不大好意思，你们可以看看炫火在自己的直播间里有没有讲话。我刚才有点卡，现在还好。我怀疑炫火是这会儿正在打架，正在摸鱼啊。我看他在 Discord 上面是休息的状态。
Worked, around the space station program for so many years, but never actually seen it. It was really, really special to come through and finally see the environment. Plus, you have all of these smiling faces, people that are excited to see you, the folks that are going to be coming home. It's really pretty overwhelming. Lots of hugs, lots of smiles, and it just, that you finally reached this goal that you've worked so hard to attain.
看看，看一下啊，它关舱门的预定时间是什么
Yeah, it's kind of like your long lost friends. You know, I think I teared up a little bit when I saw my friend Shannon. You know, big hug.
按照他们的预告来说是1:58关舱门，就是现在。
Move in that environment too, so you notice the people who have just arrived because they go to hug and then their whole body, you know, sort of swings by the person that's more stable and stationary. So it's a pretty fun rodeo to watch those first few moments.
Slinging people around on the International Space
That's
Station.
Right. There's a lot of joy.
That's great. Great question. Thank you very much for that one. And go for.
这个就是到这个时间点之后，其实时间表就不是那么准了。因为前面任何一个环节积累下的误差都会积累到现在嘛。按照他们的最早的预告来说是，还真这个点就关舱门，好准。好吧，准时关舱门。对，刚才那个封条已经拿掉了吗？啊，这不是关舱门，应该说是改变一下舱门的角度啊，再做一个检查。
With Crew that followed
you. Crew 3, no, we did not.
But there's a reason you pass along a lot of.
估计是在照一下连接机构的一个根部啊，像舱门稍微变一个角度，然后再检查一下异物。
You know, from the books, if you will, or from the simulation, but there's so much more that you're going to learn.
我估计封条还没拿掉吧。
And we have the luxury of.
正式关舱门之前，我刚才没有看到拿掉封条的动作啊。
And so we were able to
也不能叫封条吧，应该叫做舱门的边缘填充物嘛。
He was going to be there to show everybody the ropes that was arriving on Crew 3. Of course, we would have loved to be there to enjoy their company for a few days, but it does get pretty crowded.
Especially at the line to the bathroom.
Yes, that's a long line.
Even in space.
其实我觉得新建当空间站。不大好，不大好。它主要还是个载具嘛，因为它大部分的空间其实是拿来当是装燃料的嘛。另外一方面的话，还主要是它的开发方向问题啊。因为载具的话，主要是还是做在轨的一个服状态做研发的，它主要的研发方向。而新建的话，更主要的还是作为一个发射载具的研发。怎么说呢？有侧重吧，有侧重不一样。尤其从研发角度来讲的话，新建肯定是要先把它能会飞啊，飞得好和稳，这是它的最重要的一个方向。这样的话，其实它的精力可能就并不是那么，可能就两边不一定能够兼顾吧。所以我觉得他们不去争这个空间站也好，专心一点。如果龙飞船的降落伞没打开，能不能？这个问题不能乱想。
Shuttle Gravity asks. Why have many of the SpaceX crewed missions launched at night?
我估计这个是没有，就降落伞不开的时候能不能靠反推？这个原则上好像可以，但是台面上这个可能也是不能讲的啊。这个降落伞出问题，这个问题就太严重了，所以这个是不会有官方回答的。降落伞出问题，这个问题就太大了，开玩笑。
In general, the winds might be calmer at night by the ocean, but that's really just a guess. It's not something that I've tracked closely. I don't know if you guys have talked about it internally.
It is, and the conditions are better at night, but it's exactly as you say. It does come down to where the space station is going to be and how they need to catch up with it. And so when we land at night, the launch ends up happening at night.
可以关舱门了吧？
The way it is, and that's why we're spending our entire overnight.
好，关舱门，其实已经拿掉了嘛，那些填充物已经拿掉了。好，关舱门是2:01，关舱门，比预定的时间晚了3分钟，问题不大。
Crew 4, all overnight.
All overnight, that's right.
But you notice that the Axiom 1 mission, which was just about 2 weeks ago, that was during the day. So You know, it really
so
just
really
depends
what
on
I
time
remember
of year.
from shuttle days is that as the launch gets later, the time gets earlier by about 23 minutes or something like that,
Yes,
day by
that's
day.
right.
So you used to be able to do that launch math pretty quickly. If you knew the mission had slipped a week, it was going to be so much earlier. So it really does have to do with where is the space station relative to the launch site, and you got to launch right when they're directly overhead, and that's how we do it.
好，舱门正式关闭。那么接下来流程应该就是一个气密，就是龙飞船的舱内的一个气密性检查。那么反正2个做法嘛，一个是反正就是让舱内的气压先是高于还不知道低于啊，反正就是低于或高于外部气压，然后等一会儿看气压的差能不能维持住，然后再把它反过来，然后再检查一段时间。这基本上就是一个20分钟左右的一个检查过程吧，估计要有。
What kind of food will the astronauts have on the International Space Station?
So food is so important, as you can imagine. And
Freedom SpaceX, with the side hatch now closed, we're going to be commencing health checks for the launch escape system. Expect momentary flight computer state change, followed by transition back to pad hatch closed.
And there's your confirmation.
好，那么刚才是关闭舱门的作业暂时暂停一下，他们要先检查一下，要走一下那个紧急逃逸装置的检查流程啊。下面会占用一下通道，可能是占用一下通讯通道吧，没听清楚啊，然后待会再回到舱门关闭的后续流程当中。
Mango fruit salad and chicken pineapple salad for a nice little bistro lunch with some tomato basil soup on the side. Those were some of my favorites, but a nice broad menu for lots of different taste buds.
You are making me hungry. But is that the rehydrating?
先是高于嘛
？So some of it's rehydrated.
你说高于也得说什么高于什么？是内部压强高于外部吗？
All right. Well, thank you very much, Megan, for taking those questions, and thank you to the audience for sending them in. We'll keep taking them as long as.
应该是两个都要做的。舱内气压高于外界的时候和外界气压高于内部的时候，两个情况应该都是要做一下检查的。但对于龙飞船来说，比较重要的是舱内压强高于外部压强的情况下是更重要一点。作为检查来说的话，应该是双向都要做的。为什么是内部高于外部的气压比较重要？因为是在太空中的工作常态的话，就是内部压强是高于外部的。
But in the meantime, let's head over now to Houston for a closer look at what the crew will be doing when they reach their destination. Chelsea.
又在休斯顿那边睡一会儿。
When Crew-4 arrives at the space station tonight, they'll officially become Expedition 67 flight engineers. Once on board, they'll do something known as a direct handover, just like what astronaut Megan McArthur was talking about, basically saying that Crew-3 and Crew-4 will be aboard the space station all together until Crew-3 comes home sometime next week. Crew-3 will be able to give Crew-4 an orientation, show them the ropes, which might be particularly helpful for first-time space flyers Jessica Watkins and Bob Hines. A direct handover also helps ensure a continuous U.S. presence on the space station, a record that we've held for almost 22 years. But the space station is an orbiting laboratory, and they'll jump right in on research investigations. So I'll toss it over to Megan Cruz, who can tell us a little bit more about those exciting experiments the crew.
这边如果是说待会儿是他们是 Crew 4上去之后，是先 Crew 3和 Crew 4直接做一个任务的交接，然后再 Crew 3返回。说以前为什么是顺其纯氧？对，是这么回事儿。纯氧并不一定会纯，就是这样的。以前是有这么一个事情啊，不是说舱内吧，也就是说，如果是你做 EVA 行走啊，就是说在做太空行走的时候，以前一个比较经常做的一个操作是，你在舱外宇航服里面加入大概1/3大气压的一个纯氧，这样的话不会氧中毒啊，但是。一个是这样的话，你携带气体就会少携带一点嘛，因为氮气的话其实本身没有什么太大作用，所以他们的一个比较通用的做法是一个低大气压的 氧气啊，纯氧，大概是1/3大气压的一个纯氧，作为一个它的舱外宇航服的一个呼吸环境，好像是这样做的。
You know, something that's really interesting is that NASA and ESA aren't just partners when it comes to our commercial crew program. You guys are playing a critical role in our return to the moon, NASA's Artemis program.
Yeah, that's super exciting to us. I had the lovely opportunity yesterday to go into the VAB behind.
这个可以了解一下，具体我也不是我怕我也说错，你如果说更了解的，也可以在评论补充一下。宇航服内部确实是存在一个比较常见的操作手法，就是大概打入一个比较低大气压的一个纯氧环境，大概是1/3到1/4的大气压这样的一个纯氧环境。这样的话，它可以少携带一点气体嘛，这个在舱外作业的时候好像是比较通用的做法。
Permanent outpost around the moon 1,000 times further out in deep space than the space station. And so ESA is building.
应该说有几个好处吧，一个是你可以少携带一些气体，还有一个的话是你宇航服内外的压强差稍微小一点。其实的话纯氧也不是太大的问题啊。反正因为是这样的嘛，就说是纯氧的话，那么可能是会对身体正常情况下纯氧会对身体造成一个很大的负担，但是你在一个低环境气压的情况下，其实气体溶解到液体当中会变得相对困难一些，就有一点就算是一种比较严重的高山症状的一种感觉高原反应的一种症状。但是同时呢，你又把氧气的含量打高，所以其实两者之间是可以达到一个相互平衡的，是有这种实践的，是几乎纯氧的一个环境，但是是相对低气压的一个环境。扯得有点远了。有这边评论问了一下嘛，就补充一下。
For example, there's some really cool examples. We have a couple of tiny computers aboard our Columbus laboratory, and school students will be challenged.
现在应该还是在做气密性检查，我也去上个厕所，先闪开一会儿。
I really can't get over the fact that this is your first launch from here at Kennedy. I need to be right next to you when you watch this launch because I think you're going to go nuts.
As much as an English person ever goes nuts, yes.
Well, perfect, David. Thank you so much for being here. And yes, I do hope you enjoyed today's launch.
Thank you so much.
Guys, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Megan. And looking forward to his reaction. He's going to stay composed. So he says.
That's what he says.
So we just heard about the science from the European perspective, and now here's a closer look at some of the life-changing science that astronauts are performing aboard the International Space Station right now.
The International Space Station is a state-of-the-art microgravity laboratory that is unlocking discoveries not possible on Earth and helping us push farther into deep space.
Every single day, we are answering
现在开始
big
介绍
questions
国际
about
空间
Earth
站了。
and about space, about where we came from and about where we're going. But the other thing that we're doing is we're learning more questions to ask.
Microgravity turns almost everything we know upside down. Liquids behave completely differently.
学到
Fire
更多
burns
可以
in new
提出问
ways.
题的方法。
Biological systems reveal surprises.
There's a few things that have made me gasp out loud up on board Space Station. Watching heart cells actually beat has been a pretty big one.
We're studying ways to grow food in microgravity.
I got to tell you, these are pretty amazing.
We're learning how human bodies react to life in space and how to keep crew members safe and strong on long-duration exploration missions.
Deadlifts are awesome on Earth. They're also awesome in zero gravity.
We're testing technologies that will be critical to our return to the moon and great leap to Mars. Our research has contributed to medical and social benefits on our home planet, allowing us to find new ways to combat disease
对
back
国
on
际空
Earth
间站的一个介绍
and
吧。
technologies to deliver clean water to remote communities in need. The spectacular vantage point of more than 200 miles above our planet supports our monitoring of Earth's climate, natural disasters, and plant life.
Our planet Earth is absolutely stunning. To me, it doesn't matter where we are in the world, I just see beauty in different ways.
The growing new space economy
接下来一段时间确实可能是比较无聊的一段时间啊。气密性检查通过之后的话呢，应该就是一系列的通讯检查，然后是 发射场机组人员撤离，然后就感觉就没什么太多的事情了，然后就是等到发射前45分钟开始，然后再开始做燃料的加注啊，那会儿就才会事件会多起来。就接下来的1个小时里面的事件其实是比较少的。
Some of the great science taking place on board the International Space Station. Got an operational update for you right now. The crew inside Dragon there, Crew-4, received their post-ingress brief. The teams are tracking no issues at this moment. They also just completed communications checks with the key members of the Falcon 9 launch team. And now we are standing by for side hatch leak check completion. As you can see there on your screen, that is happening right now.
这是那个舱门的那个漏气检查，好像
你回来了吗？
是的。
你刚才在干嘛呀？
刚才休息了一会儿。
其实这会儿才是休息的好时间，我觉得接下来的时间会比较无聊。
确实。
他只要那个气密性检查通过之后的话，基本上就很长一段时间里面就没有什么事情。
How did you cut your hair in space?
他们开始睡时间了。
We use clippers with a vacuum hose attached to it, and so I can do about the front half of my head, basically just in the mirror.
真可以剪头发。
Usually use a crewmate to do the back side of my head.
Hey, I can't help but notice you've got an inflatable globe there attached to your leg, and I'm wondering what that's for.
That is, in case you have any questions about the Earth, since oftentimes people are curious about whether we can watch the launch and or see the orbital insertion. So obviously they'll be launching out of the Cape. Based on where we're at, hopefully we'll have a decent view. And as long as we're on at least the half of the Earth that the Cape, we might get a chance to see the rocket plume and maybe the insertion into orbit, but it's always kind of dependent on atmospheric conditions and where exactly we are in the orbit in relation to their launch.
We're getting ready to send Crew-4 to you. How are you getting ready for their arrival?
对，按照他说法，运气好的话，他们说不定能够看到火箭的升空过程。从国际空间站拍鱼火箭升空，那肯定是酷爆了。如果能拍到的话。
So yesterday evening and today we've actually been unpacking it, and part of the supplies that it's brought up are food, clothes, and other items for Crew-4. So we've been starting to distribute those around the station, pre-position them for them, and then when it gets closer in time to them showing up, we'll actually start to unpack those bags and set up their crew quarters for them.
Tell me a little bit about your experience, what you remember most about your launch day. When you guys launched from Cape Canaveral and went up to the space station, a little bit about 6 months ago?
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that struck me during the first stage was just sort of the really visceral feedback you get in the rocket, and how quick your senses are. The next thing is that you really feel is the jolt between the first and second stage. So as the first stage goes out, you feel yourself kind of get weightless for a few seconds of weightlessness, and then when the second stage lights, you get thrown backwards in your seat again, and then you feel that acceleration. And then the first spot of the space station, we happened to see it as the sun was rising about 40 kilometers away, and the way the sun was hitting it made it look like it was made out of gold. It was pretty cool, and so we just sat there mesmerized in the window watching our new home get closer to us.
Wow, that sounds incredible, and just a beautiful sight to behold it must have been. Thanks for sharing that with us. So, what experiments that you've been working on for the past few months have really
I'd say one of the ones I really enjoy working on is some of the combustion experiments, and I think because just the idea of fire in space are generally things you don't want to mix. And so you have to spend a lot of time and energy when you design these experiments to contain the combustion, because you don't want, obviously, that to get out into the atmosphere here. But the rewards of that research have led to things discovering cool flames and some potential to have much lower carbon emission processes on the ground.
几小时对接这个问题很好。我看一下，我不知道。
The promise of it is pretty amazing.
Rajachari, Expedition 66, NASA astronaut, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys, and have fun watching the Crew-4 launch. We'll be watching from here, and can't wait to welcome Kjell and the crew on board.
Well, thanks to Rajachari and the team at JSC.
韦伯的话在做仪器调试啊，仪器调试可长可短，可能还要一段时间吧。
The Crew Dragon Freedom at the very top, ready to launch in a little over an hour. Update on Rajachari, by the way, he has grown a very thick mustache. So when you see him again, he's taking the time, and apparently it's an Air Force thing. I think mustache March is what he called it. Yeah.
Pretty sure March is over though.
Yeah,
是预定是在
Yeah, apparently he missed a couple weeks, and so he's on catch up. But the other thing is, he talked a little bit about watching a launch from the space station, which I just think is
10点的时候对接。
I wonder, now we just got an update about the Space Launch System, our Mega Moon rocket, which now is looking in the August area for launch.
Okay.
Which Crew-4 would be on board for that launch, but I understand you got to be kind of lucky to see a launch.
计算对的话，那么是
You do have to be kind of lucky. We have seen them.
16个小时、17个小时左右对接时间。
Right time, right? The trajectories have to be
还蛮快的
relative to one another, correct. The lighting, of course, has to be correct, and then you kind of just have to be looking in the right direction, right? There's a little bit of element of luck involved in it as well. And then also you can see some deorbit burns of vehicles going home again. And my crewmate Thomas Pesquet did capture Crew-1's deorbit burn really beautifully well in some photographs in one of the very first nights that we were up there. So kudos to him, because I had not figured out how to even find the camera, much less take night photography of a moving object.
升空后17个小时左右对接，那还算是比较快的一次。相对来说。
on the ground will usually tell us what they think those will be.
Hope it works out for Crew-4. Crew-3, meanwhile, set to splash down next week. Megan, it seems like yesterday that you and your fellow
对，一级应该是还算平的吧？对，之前几天有看到过驳船出去的消息。
Yes.
You were the first astronaut out of the SpaceX Dragon after splashdown, and there was your look.
It was a good moment. It's a little bit painful getting out. You actually have this wonderful team who kind of just reaches in and hauls you out. There's some straps connected to your suit that they reach in and grab and haul you out, and they immediately, put you on a stretcher so they don't want you standing up or trying to walk around. Everything kind of hurts at that point. Your back hurts and everything else. I was really grateful that I felt well. I did not feel any motion sickness or anything like that.
这是当时 Maggie 她回来的时候的画面。
I think I'm seeing Shannon Walker down the end of the hall there, so I'm getting a big smile for my friend.
Shannon Walker, one of our guest hosts for the previous launch, Crew-3.
啊，人家是宣。
And Rajachari and the rest of the Crew-3 team, of course, when they return to the International Space Station next week, it'll be a great moment, just like the one we just saw there with Megan MacArthur. NASA's Megan Cruz got to speak with Crew-3's mission manager as she balances the two missions and reflects on a busy couple of years here on the Florida.
先是 Maggie MacArthur 好像是，这次是那个 Shannon 也在，两个女宇航员都过来做嘉宾了。
So this is where you will be on launch day inside one.
还有1个半小时呢。
对。
But your crew.
哎，这次的回收船是哪一艘来着？没找到。
How are you involved in Crew-4?
Well, that's correct. I'm the Crew-3 mission manager.
我来查查。
But we have a group of mission managers that is assigned to each of the missions. For Crew-4, our mission manager is actually in.
我看到 next space flight 上面说是shortfall of gravitas。
对，应该是。上次星链是just read instruction 做的嘛？对。
So we do have mission managers assigned to different locations, and as a Crew-3 mission manager, this is where I am since I'm not in the prime mission manager role. We also
期评结束之后，下一个时间点就是让他加入投票，整整1个小时之后才有，将近1个小时后。
monitoring all the activities from launch all the way to docking.
Gotcha. So what is your particular role on launch day here?
So launch day here, I am listening to the loops, helping the team if there is any anomalies or any issues, being aware of what those issues are and reporting them up to the team, make sure they have the latest information. So our NASA operations manager, who is a voice within the SpaceX countdown, can be aware of those and report them if there's an issue.
And why is it important for you as the Crew-3 mission manager to be so intertwined with Crew-4?
Well, it is important because I need Crew-4 to launch successfully for Crew-3 to return home. As you know, once Crew-4 gets into ISS, they will have a 5-day handover period with the Crew-3. And once that handover is complete, depending on the weather, we'll assess readiness for Crew-3 return, and then we'll be coming home.
How long have you been with the Commercial Crew program?
So I would say I'm fairly new to Commercial Crew. I've been with them for 2 years.
反正这里采访的这个是 Crew-3的一个负责人，应该是。他刚刚采访大一，其实就是说，如果没有什么意外的话，他只要做叫摸鱼就好了。他的任务就是，如果出了什么特殊状况的话，就把情况跟那个进行全情况进行各方面的汇报。
It seems like we launch a mission and then we have the next mission coming up, getting ready for it. So it's very exciting.
舱门气密检查应该是通过了啊，他们现在开始拆那个额外的一个就是对接口上方的一些装置啊。他们既然去拆除这些装置的话，说明应该气密性检查应该是通过了。
It just keeps us excited and motivated to continue doing it.
Yeah, very busy, exciting times here on the Space Coast. Jessica, thank you so much for being here with me today.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Back to you.
Thank you, Jessica and Megan. And she's
looking forward
to the launch of Crew-4. She's bring Crew-3 home, and we are 1 hour and 29 minutes away from that happening. You see the crew now. That's a live shot inside the White Room looking at the Dragon capsule, and we just got an update. We have a good side hatch leak check.
确实是啊，猜的是对的，刚才确实气密性检查是通过了，所以他们这边在做额外的，就是最后的一些装置拆除作业啊。这些东西都拆完之后，这些服务人员的任务就完成了，就可以撤离了。
Thanks, Daryl. Yeah, as you had just mentioned, under 90 minutes now until liftoff, and we saw that the hatch was closed.
好，那接下来就是正式进入了一个特别枯燥的40多分钟的一个等待时间。
Launch engineers are located in Firing Room 4 in the NASA Launch Control Center at Kennedy Space Center. They do have a view through the large windows that you see on screen of Pad 39A, just about 5 kilometers east of them. The Falcon 9 team is loading helium and nitrogen gas into storage bottles on the launch vehicle. RF checkouts are also complete, and the final review of vehicle testing performed earlier today is underway. The SpaceX chief engineer will check with the team at about the T-minus 80-minute mark to verify that we are still good to continue the countdown. The next major activity is flowing a small amount of fuel into the first stage to prime the Merlin 1D engines for ignition. The team is also monitoring fuel and liquid oxygen loading preparations, ensuring the propellants in the ground tanks are correctly chilled prior to loading them onto the Falcon at T-minus 35 minutes. Weather and range continue to be green. They have been green all night. So things again are looking great, as we've had really just a great and smooth countdown so far. With that, I do want to check in with Dan and Jesse, who have a very special update for us.
Hey, thanks, Andy. Now, before anybody climbs on board Dragon for a flight into space, they're going to spend a lot of time here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, where we're going to have simulators, mock-ups, and things like that for them to familiarize.
反正他们之前的任务就是水时间，我就看能不能给我们点有意思的东西来水时间。这个应该是顶部的舱门啊。要给我演示一下怎么开这个舱门吗？
Now, Dan, that's about 3.5 times the height of Shaquille O'Neal.
That's a lot of Shaqs.
The diameter of the vehicle is about 4 meters, and the payload mass that it can carry up to space is about 6,000 kilograms. So, Dan, just in case you wanted to bring a large African elephant with you to outer space, you totally could. And the return mass is about half of that. It's about 3,000.
第二个说一个就是里面的空间和载荷质量，可以承重质量的话，理论上是可以运一个运头大象的。说法还蛮屌的。果然是要跟我演示顶部的舱门怎么开啊。
I'll walk you through it a little bit. So there's a crank right here, and there's an identical one on the other side. And there's a decal on here that tell you which direction and how to open this. So when you tune into docking tomorrow, you'll hear the crew get the call to open the hatch per the decal. So after we move the handle out, we can just start to open it up. There's a small indicator in the window that'll tell us just how close we're getting. And after we get it all the way down, we're going to hear a telltale pop, and then it's time to open up the hatch. And so it opens up pretty slowly.
Yeah, so now it may look like Dan is
钻这么多圈儿。
struggling to open the door, but in fact, the hinges are designed with dampers so that the door does open pretty slowly. It's about 7 seconds to fully open, no matter how much you push or pull on the hatch door. And that's a safety precaution. The door opens up to the interior of the Dragon vehicle, so we want to make sure that the door doesn't swing and hit anything inside the vehicle or harm anybody that's inside.
这舱门的机械臂有很强的一个阻力啊，就说是你不管你用多大的力去拉和推啊，它的开舱和关舱都至少需要7秒钟的时间。
And so not just practicing how to open the hatch and close it, they can also practice attaching seals and covers to the hatchway. There's also a window here that you can look through to the forward part of Dragon, and there's a pressure equalization valve that can be used to manually equalize pressure between Dragon and the space station.
Yeah, and this is just one of the many components that our teams here get to do and be able to train the crew on. So if you're interested in any of the work here at SpaceX, please take a look at spacex.com/jobs and check it out.
还顺便发一个招聘广告。
Kennedy, how's it going over there, Daryl?
It's going great, Jesse. Thank
哎，
you.
关门的时候也是有一个响声的。
Little show and tell there of the hatch. Megan, you were familiar with that.
Absolutely. That was one of the training items that we would use when we would go out to Hawthorne to make sure we understood how that mechanism worked.
Weren't you saying that you did it faster? Is that what
A little bit, maybe a little bit faster, yeah.
All right, we're currently T-minus 1 hour and 24 minutes and counting until Crew Dragon flies its next 4-person crew to the International Space Station with the astronauts that you see. They're inside that spacecraft right there. Commander Kjell Lindgren, pilot Bob Hines, and mission specialist Jessica Watkins and Samantha Cristoforetti. We are getting ready to do the launch escape system checks. We've had the common leak checks. Those were successful. We closed the hatch. We got a secure seal on that, got that confirmed. And then we also have started to begin those launch escape system and communication checks. That's all conducted by the Falcon launch team. These checkouts are a standard part of the launch countdown, and they're critical to make sure everything is in working order before arming that launch escape system. The launch escape system, of course,
对，还有1个小时20分钟。
to the astronauts inside.
而且接下来就没什么事件了，就是发射前45分钟会有一个是否进行加注的一个投票，然后之后才会有事情发生。
To get the crew safely away from a rocket that might be experiencing an
哎，我其实有个问题啊，3辆特斯拉是不是会停个2辆在底下，还是说会开走？
And that launch escape
我
system is
我觉得应该会开走
Super
吧，
Draco
就是等
engines
到
that are
时
capable
候
of moving
人员
Dragon
撤离的时候，他
half a
们
mile
就有
in
一部分人
7.5
应该可以搭乘这个特斯拉。
That is
嗯
I guess equivalent to a peak velocity of 400.
就是如果说终止，那么它再开回来，对吧？
Imagine what that feels like.
Well, fortunately, we have not had to experience that at
对，应
this
该是那
point.
样。
But if it were necessary to get away, like I said, from a rocket that is having an off-nominal event, that would sure be
发射
how
终
fast
止
you'd want to be moving.
这个我还没想过。
发射终止，它也其实宇航员也等很久才能出来嘛，应该是到时候就再开回来接他们就
You
可以。
can manually trigger that system as well, right?
You can manually trigger that
如果是
system.
那种
and it
很
can
酷的
be
那种
triggered
紧
in
急撤
response
离
to a，
能
condition,
拿绳索下去的，
ground
估计也有紧急
specifically
避难的
let
地
them
方。
know, if they had time, but of course things can happen very quickly, and so it needs to be able to happen automatically as well.
Crew-3 is scheduled to splash down next
哎，
week.
当地可能已经很热了，你看这种
And,
空气的抖
Megan
动。
will be there.
I will.
Megan MacArthur? No, but the ship that Megan was named after,
Oh,
yes.
look at that.
Actually, the ship was named after you. The SpaceX's seafaring vessel that will be used to recover Crew-3 and the Dragon capsule was renamed after our own Megan MacArthur.
真的吗？就是这艘船是被空差这艘回收船被命名为 Maggie 嘛，就是这次
Previously it was named Go
主持人嘛。
Navigator. SpaceX renamed the ship Megan
是很有可
as
能
well.
就
They have
是
another ship. They
比较早的
renamed
和
the
空差
ship
合作的 NASA 宇航员的名字拿来命名船的名字，好像
Dragon. Look,
好
Megan,
像
your
是
name
空
is
差在做的
on
一
the
件事情。
life
On
preserver.
the life preserver.
是的，是的。
That's fantastic. What an honor. I have
哎，
not
真的就
seen
是
it
Maggie
in person.
McArthur
Of course, I have
就命名作为这艘船的
I
命名
feel like that's a real honor. It's
那
funny.
这艘船应该也是空差
I
自己的
remember
了
that I
对
flew in
吧？
space, and that's what got a ship named after me for doing. But it's a tremendous honor,
直
and
属
I'm
的
really
亲儿
happy
子
to be just a little part of that history.
这个得要
Listen,
查一
good
查
ship。Megan already picked up a crew. They took the ship out there and
船
picked up the Axiom 1 crew.
这个船是不是
Landed just
新
off
的
the coast
我
of
们来看一
Jacksonville,
下
so already hard at work.
Already an experienced ship. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yep.
Well, hopefully you get to see it and get a selfie with it.
Definitely. That's on my list.
Speaking of history-making astronauts, we now have a special message, Megan, from one of the astronauts who flew Crew Dragon's first test flight. And the message is for our guest host, Megan McArthur, and for the 4 astronauts of Crew-4. Take a listen.
All right.
Howdy, Megan. It's your husband, Bob. I didn't want you to miss the melodious sound of my voice while you were down in Florida giving commentary for Crew-4. I did want to wish you all the best and let you know that Theo and I are thinking of you and really looking forward to reliving both the Crew-4 launch and watching the Crew-3 splashdown together as a family when you return. For Crew-4, Kjell, Bob, Jessica, and Samantha, I wish you all the best. I know that you've trained really hard in preparation for this mission, and I'm expecting great things from y'all while you're on board. I would give you one piece of advice, and that's to really enjoy that final meal in crew quarters that you get prior to heading out to the vehicle to strap on and launch into space. Doug and I really enjoyed ours, and I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about what you selected to eat prior to strapping on a rocket ship. You know, for me, it's hard to believe that it's been nearly 2 years since I launched on the Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station and had the opportunity to stay on board for just a few short months. It almost seems surreal, but I'm reminded every day by the great accomplishments that I see with the crews on board the International Space Station that we achieved something, that it is real, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing what you guys, Crew-4, accomplish while you're on orbit. I wish you all the best, and good luck.
好，第一次发射的宇航员 Bob 以及 Megan 的老公，就这里主播的老公发来的问候。
我刚刚查了一下 ，Megan 其实就是 Go Searcher， 重新命名了一下。然后这艘船现在确实是 SpaceX 的。
哦，好的，那这个资讯不错，就对，看上去也很眼熟。那只是说它所属转到 SpaceX 名下，所以重新命名，对吧？应该是。严格来说不能算新船。我从属关，不过确实是正式成为空差亲儿子了，或者亲女儿。对啊，这评论说的也不错，感觉 Bob 2年不见，感觉老了很多。
Let's now join Megan Cruz, who is with Phil McAllister. He is the director of the Commercial Spaceflight Division at NASA headquarters. Y'all take it away.
That's right, Phil McAllister. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
So talk to me about this being the 4th crew rotational flight.
才2年啊 ，Demo 2，我感觉他说已经2年了，我感觉才2年，感觉过得好快。
That we've been working on these vehicles for it was 10 years in development. So now after all that development, we're actually flying, and it's very gratifying. And to have 4 missions within 2 years is really kind of amazing, and it's really picked up the pace. And it's just what we were working for.
Yeah, you know, reliable, irregular cadence. It's really amazing to see that, again, this program has only been around for about 10 years.
Yep.
So then, you
还值得一提的，就是 Maggie 刚才那艘船对吧 ？X1 就是他们这次带回来的 X1 的龙飞船，是刚刚被 Maggie 带回港口啊。空差现在手下有几艘船？空差在管理的船还蛮多的，直接从属的船的话，像 Bob 和 Doug 号，还有就是 Shuttle Veritas， 2个，反正就是3艘一级回收船。还有哪些？这个 Maggie 肯定也是啊。
Human space transportation is very strong, and a lot of people are going to be able to experience this more and more, which is kind of just what we were doing.
Yeah, exactly. And what is the importance of fostering these commercial efforts in low Earth orbit? You know, NASA has so many other goals, but why is it important to still maintain this particular presence again in low Earth orbit?
I think you said it, is because NASA does have all these goals. If we maintained all the the footprint of what we had done in the past, we won't be able to go as far in the future and far out into the solar system as we want. So I think it's time for low Earth orbit that has now a little bit more routine of a mission. It's time to turn that over to the private sector. They've shown the
对，龙飞船是全新的，被命名为 Freedom 自由号。
that they are capable, with NASA's help, of doing that mission, and so that we can direct our resources towards the moon and Mars.
Can you remember a busier time on the Space Coast?
I really cannot. You know, it's interesting. I was here for the last shuttle mission, and I remember being at the hotel, and they were all like, "Oh no, this is the last shuttle mission. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep going." And now there's 5 more hotels.
那空差手下的，我这边找到一个好的网站 ，SpaceXFleet.com， 就是专门介绍空差船队的。
对，我刚才看的就是这个。
看的就是这个，那么直接属于空差名下的应该就是3个1级回收船和 Bob 号、Dog 号，还有就是 Maggie， 还有 Shannon 这几艘船对吧？7艘6艘7艘船，其他的 GoQuest 和 N2C-Quest 应该是分别是另外2家公司管理的。左下倒计时啊，因为到时候是3点53分吧。
Yes, when we complain about it, we were like, what are we complaining about? This is actually our job, so it's nice to be flying.
Phil, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoyed today's launch.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back to Hawthorne for another check on the countdown.
对，捞整流罩的一般都是要么就是 Bob 号，要么就是 Dog 号，都是自己的船。
Now we're just at T-minus 1 hour and just under 15 minutes away from launch, and it just gets more and more exciting as we approach that T0. Now.
其实就是这样的嘛，因为空差以前它的运营模式其实可能有一定的实验性嘛，现在就说基本上稳定下来了，那么可能就不租船了，而是把船买到自己的帐下，好长期用啊。像之前不是接整了装的船，Miss Shift 和 Miss Tree 嘛，这种都是他们有点实验性质嘛，所以用一段时间就租的嘛，没有打算长期用。
The hatch closed, and the closeout team was able to confirm that we got through a good side hatch leak check, so that was another really important milestone. There were also some communication checks with some of the key members in the Falcon 9 launch team. But coming up, the closeout team is going to get ready to depart, so we're going to see them move out of the white room, off the crew arm, and they're going to leave the area. And after they're gone, the only people left at that pad area are the astronauts. The weather checks have just kicked off, releasing a couple of weather balloons. The good news is all of the weather has continued to look great for launch.
Closeout team has departed the crew arm.
就是刚才的发射场服务人员走了，撤离了。
There, the Corps giving that update. So the closeout team has departed the crew arm. They're going to get in cars and drive away. Then it's just Crew-4 on the pad, and that's it. And then we're going to get closer to launch. Again, weather's continued to look fantastic. Very low probability of violation at the launch site. And then our ascent corridor weather just all the way up the eastern seaboard of the U.S. Has continued to trend all in the right direction.
最新放出的气象气球也说明了天气是非常好的。
And great news on that weather. We will also do a final go-no-go poll. But before we get to that, the various teams at both NASA and SpaceX will do an internal go poll, making sure that conditions are right with Falcon 9, the Dragon, the Crew, the range, and the space station before the final go is given. So now let's check back in with Houston for a status update on the team supporting the space station on the readiness for launch. Chelsea, how's it going over there?
继续靠休斯顿睡时间。我感觉休斯顿这边的作用就是在其他主持人需要休息的时候过来睡一下。看这帮人。其实根本没他们的事，他只不过是这边街头一样的感觉，留下来看家的人员。
This includes life support systems, proper communications links, computers that allow us to command the station's onboard subsystems, and our ability to control and maneuver the space station. All of those are fully functional. The crew in orbit is getting out of their sleep period now. They're just starting to wake up. And when the Crew-4 launches, this crew is actually going to be flying over Romania. That's where the space station will be at the time of launch. So how about that? But as they're getting into their morning routine now at the time of launch, they're going to make sure that they're refreshed and ready to receive the crew. But here in Mission Control Houston, we'll continue monitoring the mission as we check off milestones for today's flight. In the meantime, I'll send it back to Hawthorne. The International Space Station is ready for launch. Dan?
说国际空间站上的宇航员刚刚醒过来，主要是要把他们时间调整到，就说是等他们对接的时候是醒着的，应该是这样的意思吧。
In a myriad of areas like material science, developing new health technologies, working on plant science, growing some pretty exciting plants on board the space station, microgravity, just a lot of different science as we prepare for human exploration beyond low Earth orbit, and also to deliver benefits to us back here on Earth. And all of that research just lays the groundwork for that future exploration that we're aiming towards to the moon and Mars, starting with the agency's
现在是相对可能比较无聊，挂个10几分钟，或者去休息个10几分钟再回来。
Crew-3 Crew Dragon spacecraft and the Crew-3 mission. He's responsible for all phases of flight from launch to re-entry. He's currently serving as an Expedition 67 flight engineer aboard the station. The Crew-3 launch was the first space flight for Chari, who was selected as a NASA astronaut candidate in 2017. Now, he was born in Milwaukee, but considers Cedar Falls, Iowa, his hometown.
And also on board was NASA astronaut Tom Marshburn. He's the pilot of the Crew Dragon spacecraft, essentially the second in command for the mission while they're in free flight. He's responsible for the spacecraft systems and its performance. Right now, though, on board the station, he's the commander of Expedition 67. And Marshburn, a native of Statesville, North Carolina, became an astronaut back in 2004. Crew-3 was his third visit to the space station and his second long-duration stay on the laboratory.
Barron was selected as an astronaut candidate in 2017 and is a mission specialist for Crew-3. She works closely with the commander and pilot to monitor a spacecraft during the dynamic launch and re-entry phases of flight. She's currently serving as a flight engineer for Expedition 67 aboard the station. Barron was born in Pocatello, Idaho, but considers Richland, Washington, her hometown.
And rounding out Crew-3 was Matthias Maurer, who was also a mission specialist for the Crew-3 mission. And again, working with the commander and pilot to monitor the Dragon spacecraft during all of those different dynamic phases, launch and re-entry, docking and undocking. He's also a flight engineer on Expedition 67, and like Raja Chari and Caleb Barron, this was his first trip to space. And he was from St. Wendel in the German state of Saarland. So that 4-person crew is currently on board. They're preparing for Crew-4's arrival, but their return back to Earth is just days away, assuming we get an on-time launch today. So looking forward to seeing all of them on board the space station together. Let's get back to the countdown now. We'll head over to Daryl at the Kennedy Space Center. Daryl?
All right, thank you very much, Dan and Jesse. And if you're just now joining us, welcome to coverage for the mission known as Crew-4, NASA and SpaceX's 4th flight of astronauts to the International Space Station. We are currently at T-minus 1 hour and 8 minutes until liftoff. Liftoff time still holding, Megan, for 3:52 Eastern time, 3:52 and 55 seconds. That's where the 5's come from. And we're tracking no issues with Falcon 9 or Dragon. The range is green, weather is cooperating, and over the last 3 hours, our crew of Kjell Lindgren, Bob Hines, Jessica Watkins, and Samantha Cristoforetti have donned their SpaceX space suits in the historic crew quarters suit-up room. Then they walked out of their crew quarters building, as every NASA astronaut has done since Apollo 7. Then they were transported to the pad, where they climbed inside the SpaceX Crew Dragon Freedom, and now we are seeing them live on that rocket that you see on your screen right there, awaiting liftoff. And so, Megan, as they wait for this, what is the crew doing in these moments? Right, the closeout crew is leaving, and so it's just the astronauts inside the spacecraft.
Yes, you certainly realize as that hatch closes and you get the call that everyone's left the pad, that you're getting very, very close to launch. Throughout the time, and it is a significant amount of time that they're in there and waiting. In the beginning, you first arrive, you want to make sure that if you had to do an emergency egress, you know what all of the functions are that you need to do, what all of the equipment is, and so you take some time to be serious about thinking through all of that. And as we go further and we approach the propellant loading, they're going to again be very much focused on the tasks at hand. But in between, there's quite a lot of downtime, and so they'll be entertaining each other, telling stories, maybe they'll be playing some games. The few glimpses that we've had of them, I've seen some smiles on faces, so I think they're in there having fun, getting ready.
Plenty of smiles from Crew-4 indeed. We've seen that, and it's been good to see. Over the next hour, we will conduct a series of polls to get ready for launch. The crew will also arm the launch escape system, and the fueling of the Falcon 9 will begin, and that's a big moment. Let's talk about today's flight. Launch, of course, is set for 3:52 and 55 seconds a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. This will include a 12-minute flight to orbit and then a roughly 16-hour flight to dock with the International Space Station at 8:15 p.m. tonight, Eastern Daylight Time, all in one day.
Yes, it is a long day.
You know, when I think about them getting ready to fly, I think about the story that I've heard you tell about that flight uphill. You'd gotten, you know, past the tough part, right? You've lifted off, Crew 2 is in space, and you felt like everything was okay. And then there was this sudden alarm.
Yes.
Can you recount that story?
Sure. Well, actually, it was kind of, you know, again, a very long day. You're exhausted for a lot of reasons, and it was at that time our bedtime. And so we'd been given the go to dress into our pajamas, pull out our sleeping bags, and basically hunker down and try to get as much sleep as you can before the rendezvous begins the next day. And we got the call from Sarah, our core, to say, hey, we're tracking an object that's potentially going to get too close to you. We need you and put everything away. You have, I think it was 15 or 20 minutes. And so that was an immediate scramble to do exactly what she had said. There was no time to really think about it. We had to just go right into the drill of practicing those motions that we had done, of course, at home. And our awesome mission specialists, Aki and Tama, got Shane and I into our suits and strapped into our seats, and then got themselves suited, and then had to put absolutely everything away. Every t-shirt, every sleeping bag, every sock, everything. And that was a tremendous amount of work under time pressure. And just as they got the last, you know, zipper zipped and buckled, we got the call that said it was a false alarm. And there was not actually an object out there on a trajectory with us. So it did feel a lot like the simulator that the sim soup had just maybe seen, that we were done with the task and was ready to move on to the next thing.
Wow.
But it was a good practice. It got our hearts racing.
What an experience, thinking you might hit something in space, but actually it was a false alarm. It was something that was improperly entered into the system. There was nothing there.
That's right.
But you trained for that,
right?
And you were ready for it.
We were.
Thank you for sharing for that.
Sure.
All right, let's check in now with Hawthorne and go out to California for a status on both vehicles. Andy, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Daryl. We've had a smooth countdown so far, and the SpaceX team is working no issues as the pace begins to pick up. We heard that the crew had left the pad, and so right now it's just the crew inside Dragon. For Falcon 9, our two-stage reusable rocket, final propulsion checkouts of the first and second stages, and the engine began just a few minutes ago in preparation for propellant loading. Now, this involves testing and cycling valves, as well as engine pneumatics pressurization. At the T-minus 45-minute mark, the team will report their readiness for propellant load with a final electronic go-no-go poll. Now, before we can begin starting to load propellant on Falcon 9, we do have a few more tasks to perform. First, we need to retract the crew access arm away from the Dragon capsule to its launch position. That's going to happen between the T-minus 44 and the T-minus 42-minute mark. With the arm out of the way, the launch escape system will be armed, and once these two events are complete, Dragon will be ready for Falcon propellant loading. We'll also verify with the launch weather officer that weather meets all the constraints. These include items such as wind speed, lightning, and precipitation. We do expect acceptable weather conditions for launch at both the surface level and upper altitudes, though. Range is currently clear for launch from historic launch pad 39A. Worldwide network of ground stations and the tracking and data relay satellites are ready to support Dragon as it heads into orbit. Today, we do have an instantaneous launch window at 3:52 a.m. Eastern Time. Once we begin loading propellant, there is no opportunity to change to T0. The timing for Dragon to rendezvous with the International Space Station is very precise, down to the second. So we do only get one chance at it today. The good news is we are at T-minus 1 hour and 1 minute and counting. Everything is looking green, so I'm going to send it back over to Jesse.
That's great news, Andy. Thanks for the update. Today's launch marks the 4th time a rotational crew will fly on a commercial spacecraft, and each of our crew members brings a diverse set of experiences to today's flight. Kjell Lindgren is commander of the Crew Dragon spacecraft and the Crew-4 mission, responsible for all phases of flight from launch to reentry. Kjell spent most of his childhood abroad and returned to the U.S. to earn a doctorate of medicine from the University of Colorado. Board certified in emergency medicine, Kjell served as the deputy crew surgeon for STS-130 and Expedition 24. He also flew on Expedition 44 and 45, logged 141 days in space, participated in 2 spacewalks, and more than 100 different science experiments on station.
And Bob Hines is the pilot of Crew Dragon Freedom today, and he's going to be responsible for spacecraft systems and performance, and he's second in command for the mission. He's also going to serve as a flight engineer for Expeditions 67 and 68 on board the station. He was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina, earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Aerospace Engineering from Boston University. After he graduated from there, went to the U.S. Air Force Test Pilot School, where he was awarded a Master of Science in Flight Test Engineering, and then went on to complete a Master of Science degree in Aerospace Engineering from the University of Alabama. A lot of school. In 2012, he was selected as a research pilot at NASA's Johnson Space Center, and then in 2017, got the call to become an astronaut candidate.
Jessica Watkins is a mission specialist for Crew-4. This will be Jessica's first trip to space following her selection as an astronaut in 2017. As a mission specialist, she will work closely with the commander and pilot to monitor the spacecraft during the dynamic launch and reentry phases of flight. Jessica earned a bachelor's degree in geological and environmental sciences from Stanford University and a doctorate in geology from the University of California, Los Angeles. At the time of her astronaut selection, she was a postdoctoral fellow in the Division of Geological and Planetary Sciences at the California Institute of Technology, where she collaborated as a member of the science team for the Mars Science Laboratory rover Curiosity.
And our 4th crew member, Samantha Cristoforetti, also a mission specialist for Crew-4 from the European Space Agency. In 2001, she graduated from the Technical University of Munich, Germany, with a master's degree in mechanical engineering with specializations in aerospace propulsion and lightweight structures. And she also attended the Euro-NATO Joint Jet Pilot Training Program at Shepherd Air Force Base in the U.S., where she earned her fighter pilot wings in 2006. She was selected as an ESA astronaut in May 2009, and then in November 2014, launched from the Cosmodrome in Baikonur, Kazakhstan, before returning to Earth in June of 2015 after spending 200 days in space. Then in 2019, she went on a different mission, NASA's 23rd Extreme Environment Mission Operations, also known as NEMO, a 10-day stay in the world's only undersea research station, Aquarius.
Each of these 4 crew members will join Expeditions 67 and 68 once they arrive at the International Space Station.
All right, well, we are under an hour away from launch, so we're getting into really the exciting part of the countdown. We heard that the crew, the closeout crew has left the arm, they're out of the area, and we're getting closer to propellant loading and some of the really exciting moments. SpaceX's Crew-4 mission is the company's 5th crewed spaceflight for NASA. We had the Demo 2 test flight and 3 previous operational crewed missions to station. This is also SpaceX's 7th crewed spaceflight overall, including the Inspiration 4 mission as well as the AX-1 mission, which just recently came home.
Today, our crew is flying the newest Dragon in our fleet, and we'll be taking a ride on board the Falcon 9 that supported the CRS-22 mission in June of last year. Now, it's been a great countdown so far. As Andy has been saying, weather has been looking really good for T0, and again, the excitement just continues to pick up as we get closer to the T0 mark.
It's gone really smoothly so far today. If you joined us at the very beginning, we started with Suit Up just over 3 hours ago, where the SpaceX team helped the crew put on their suits that they're going to wear for all of the launch operations and did the initial checkouts, suit leak checks before they got to the crew walkout. And that's where Kjell, Bob, Jessica, and Samantha gave some final goodbyes and some waves to folks gathered outside the operations and checkout building before they climbed into the Teslas and began that roughly 20-minute ride out to pad 39A.
We did watch as the crew boarded their Teslas and headed down the NASA Causeway, headed towards the launch pad. Once they arrived at the pad, the crew took a moment to enjoy the view of the vehicle they will be taking flight on this morning, and then headed up to fix service
Freedom
structure.
SpaceX, we are cycling orbit tank isolation valves to equalize low flow pressure.
Freedom copies.
Just some comms there between the crew and the ground. And again, as they headed up the fixed service structure, they began the process known as crew ingress, and that's where the astronauts entered the Dragon spacecraft. The SpaceX team then performed a series of checks to ensure the suits, seats, and vehicle interactions were all functioning properly.
Yeah, they made their way two at a time down that crew access arm, and then getting in one at a time into the Dragon spacecraft. We saw Kjell and Bob make the walk down first, followed soon after by Samantha and Jessica. And they were helped into the vehicle by that closeout team, which a little while ago we did hear that they made their way off the crew access arm. They were able to close the hatch with the crew safely inside, execute the side hatch leak check, and so we're less than an hour to go now. And so things are going to start to really pick up as we go through a series of go-no-go polls to arm the launch escape system and then start propellant loading.
The crew poll for readiness was completed at the T-minus 60-minute mark, and the Dragon poll for prop loading is coming up here at about T-minus 55 minutes. And then after that, we'll be at T-minus 45 minutes. There will be an internal mission control Hawthorne
Freedom
poll.
SpaceX, at this time you are go for section 6. When you're ready, please report go for launch.
Copy. Freedom is go for section 6 and put that to work.
Again, just pausing for those comms between the core and the Crew-4 astronauts. At T-minus 45 minutes, we will have an internal mission control Hawthorne poll and then the launch director's poll for propellant loading. Now, when we get to about the T-minus 40-minute mark, the crew access arm will retract and the crew will get the call to close their visors and to arm the launch escape system. Now, that's the automated safety system in place that can fire the 8 Super Draco thrusters on Dragon to quickly separate the crew from the rocket, either on the pad or during the flight on the ride uphill.
And then once we reach 35 minutes before liftoff, propellant loading for Falcon 9 will begin, loading fuel and oxidizer on both the first and second stages on Falcon 9. So we'll continue to get views of the crew. They're going to get ready to report their readiness for launch. They're in their suits throughout this entire phase. But for right now, we are just standing by for these final polls, and then we'll get into propellant loading. So with things starting to pick up, let's send it back now to the teams in Florida. Over to you, Daryl.
All right, thank you, Dan. And since we last saw you, our team has grown. Check this out. So Megan MacArthur and I want to welcome a group of NASA social participants onto our launch broadcast. They are standing behind us and all around us. Guys, welcome. So you might ask, what are NASA social participants? This is them, and they are stoked. And here's what they've been doing. NASA puts out an open invitation to social media influencers who engage in STEM and science communication to come out to Kennedy, and you're looking at the pictures of some of the stops they went to around Kennedy. They tour this multi-user spaceport in the days leading up to launch, and it ends with a rocket launch. They get to see it as close as you can possibly get.
好，我回来了。有什么错过？有什么有意思的内容吗？
So I know you guys are excited about that. NASA social
好像
participant
没啥。
Camille Calabrese
没啥。
is otherwise known as the
我看
Galactic
看
Gal on
这有什么
Instagram.
评论？
And so you're here as with all of your NASA participants.
啊，对，空差现在是就4个龙飞船啊，以后就说是不造新的了。然后这次的是龙飞船是全新的。
I started my platform during COVID, so we haven't had NASA Social since then. And it has been
在用什么水内容？
I know we had a delay.
倒计时在左上，还有52分钟。
Some of us stayed. We got to come back. We got to see so many things, and I have gotten to meet so many wonderful people from all different walks of life. And some of them are artists, some of them are foodies, some of them are space influencers, and so it's just been really phenomenal to be here and get to experience this with everyone.
Absolutely, and each one of you represent a substantial
这些啥呀？
audience that you're communicating with and sharing the science, which we appreciate so much. So we're so glad that you're here to do that. What's been the favorite part that you've done so far?
That is a really hard question.
我有点懵，这会儿这批人是干嘛的？
But I think the best part for me has been, or was, getting to see 3 different rockets on their pads at the same time. And it really just solidified to me what a time to be alive, right? You see SpaceX with Starlink, then you see SpaceX with Crew Dragon, and then you see SLS and Orion taking us back to the moon. And that was just really incredible to see that right here with my own eyes.
Totally, and you guys got lucky, really, because there was a launch last week. You've seen 2 launches. We have NASA socials that don't get to do that. So good on you for.
哦，这些是等于是他们的社交媒体相关的一些，也是
Yeah, I think communicating science on
有点宣传部的味道。
challenging for a couple different reasons, but I think one of them is that
怪不得说话是这种感觉。
long attention spans, right? You get 30 seconds of people's attention a lot of times. So most of my content is actually on TikTok and those types of really short videos. And you get
就感觉像正常人，没有那种 nerd 的味，没有 nerd 的味道。
and engaging, right? You have to
是的，我在跟于老师连麦。
And I think for space specifically, it's challenging because space.
当地现在跟我们时差是正好是12个小时嘛，所以当地时间是凌晨3点。
So I think just really communicating why are we doing this and why it's really important to humanity and life on Earth.
All right, well, the Galactic Gal, I want to give you an opportunity to ask a question of a NASA astronaut, Megan MacArthur. Put you on the spot.
Oh, you put me on the spot.
What one question would you ask an astronaut?
Okay, so this might be cliche, but I'm sure we have a lot of young people watching, and I would really love to hear from your perspective as a female astronaut. What is something that you would recommend to somebody, say, 5 years old?
Well, I think what I recommend to kids of any age and any gender is to figure out what it is that you love to do. Be curious and try new things, right? Don't decide just one thing. At 5 years old, I'm going to do this one thing, right? Because there's so many other amazing experiences to have. So be curious, ask lots of
就
questions.
问以后载人用什么？还是用龙飞船？在新建正式能够到载人之前，一般就是用龙飞船持续的做这些载，就是龙飞船应该是 SpaceX 唯一的。 刚刚播报应该是要进行燃料加注与否的投票了。刚刚说是龙飞船应该会是 SpaceX 很长一段时期唯一的载人工具啊。主要是他们现在有近乎无限次复用的这个自信吧，可能是，所以就宣布不再做新的龙飞船。
I think for me, meeting the challenge of every single day, meeting the schedule every day, and whatever that brought was really the challenge. Because every single day was different. Some days were easier than others. Some days were really hard. Some days you really had to lean on your crewmates. Some days you really were helping out your crewmates. So it was that maintaining that even keel for the entire 200 days.
新建暂时发布，我感觉就是还有很多工作要做嘛，而且 FAA 的审批也没有环评也没有给下来。那么最理想的话可能是6月份，我个人猜测啊。但我个人觉得今年上半年发射的实际发射可能性并不是很高。
关键看那个 B7吧 ，B7能不能修好？不是说 B7那个降液管还是可以修。
因为他现在把 B7 线上次加注的时候降液管压坏了嘛，他现在既然重新停回机库里面的话，肯定是要修的，就是但能不能修好这是没有保证的，对吧？然后 B8 还是 BN8 应该还没做完吧？
And it's a lot of hard work as well because the astronauts are doing a tremendous amount of research there. We're going to talk about
理想情况是 BN7 再推出来，然后再重新去发射架，然后或者就是 BN7 推出来然后报废，然后 BN8 推回去完工，然后再把 BN8 拖回去。但不管怎么说，都是还蛮花时间的。
Let's now check back in with Andy at SpaceX in California.
Thanks, Daryl. It is T-minus 47 minutes.
我估计是要介绍一下燃料加注与否的流程了。
Review of data from checkouts of Falcon 9 over the last hour. The launch director is about to poll the team for readiness, both to load propellant and to launch. And the exciting thing is this is the last poll before we lift off. The 7 SpaceX engineers indicate they are go by electronically voting on the online countdown procedure. The launch director also checks in with Dragon mission director and NASA launch manager to make sure that they are also ready. Earlier you saw the vehicle assembly building called the VAB.
应该快开始了，就是燃料投票其实还蛮有意思啊。应该是之前的话，其实就是每个部门啊，像是负责飞船的、负责火箭的或者负责通讯等等，各个部门应该是内部已经投票已经完成了。那么说现在是部门代表已经准备进行这个是否加注燃料的投票开始了，应该是7个部门的代表。那么这边发射指挥读一下里面的流程和规范啊，比如刚刚说的是，如果说有任何紧急情况的时候，可以喊3声后的来叫停整个发射流程。
In the event of a fire alarm, key operators noted below will remain at their post while the alarm is evaluated. In the event that personnel safety is threatened, evacuate to the south-facing emergency exit, which leads directly outside. Launch control, you may proceed with arming the ground for movement.
大概就是介绍一下，就说是叫停的时候应该怎么样操作流程。如果说是有火灾是什么的，人员应该怎么撤离，或者是还有哪些危急情况的话，应该做大概的怎么一个应对流程啊。那么下一个流程应该是。那么接下来2个流程应该是剑桥的撤回和紧急逃逸装置的ARM 对ARM 这个应该怎么翻译？我们有商量定吗？
对 ARM 我看一下，
应该怎么翻？武装的翻译好像不大好。哦，有了，剑桥撤回了。那么这2个应该是同时的，就说是剑桥撤回和紧急逃逸状态进入一个就绪的状态，这2个应该是同时。因为剑桥一旦撤回之后，那么宇航员就没有办法通过普通的下船的方式来进行撤离了，那么就说是要依靠紧急逃逸装置了。找到了。
So far, weather and range continue to be go for launch. We are monitoring the clearance area around the launch pad as well as air and sea space around the flight corridor.
那么剑桥大概会撤回一个90度左右的角度啊。
Here at Kennedy Space Center, the conditions are predicted to be acceptable for liftoff.
我之前那个翻译就是直接翻译成准备完毕的，我觉得还是翻译成那个什么好一点，就是你说就绪会好一点。
我也不知道，因为他说那个紧急逃逸装置其实有好几个阶段嘛，就是说其实前面也有过说是 get ready 还是什么来着 ，ARM 好像是就是更进一步的一种上膛的感觉。不纠结了。如果你没有好的想法的话，反正大家理解这意思就好。
Also, SpaceX teams have pulled go for the LES arm and prop load. That's the launch escape system.
那么，刚燃料加注投票应该是已经通过了，应该是会在发射前38分钟正式开始燃料的加注。
And so here we are at T-minus 42 minutes and counting. We're standing by for the next major milestone. We saw the Crew access arm retract, and that's one of the last major visual milestones that we'll see in preparation for liftoff. And then shortly thereafter, we'll hear
Crew access arm retraction is complete.
刚播报是剑桥的已经完全撤回了。
Access arm retraction is complete. And so now we're looking towards propellant load.
这里其实可以介绍一下，就空舱采取的一个比较抠门的做法，就是它基本上是把燃料和一氧的加注拖到发射前比较接近发射的时候才开始加注啊。这是因为火箭不去做特别的保温，它一方面是用超低温一氧做氧化剂啊，但火箭本身又不做特别好的保温装置，这样以减轻火箭重量。那么相对它采取了一个比较聪明或者说比较狡猾的做法，就是把加注拖到最后一刻进行，这样的话你就不需要太去考虑保温的问题。 这是为什么？就说是到这个点还没有开始加注燃料，还要做燃料加注与否的投票。
So that launch escape system being armed is coming up, and that's definitely something that I remember the Demo 2 crew telling us to expect, a loud noise associated with that pressurization of those lines. And so that is something that we were ready for and expected.
How about that? You could hear the pressurizing of those
这 Maggie 给了一个很好的信息啊。Maggie 是做过的龙飞船的嘛，是 Demo 2的，不是 Crew 2的时候的成员嘛。那么这会儿才把那个紧急逃逸装置进入一个就绪或者说武装的状态。他刚刚说那个 Maggie 介绍说，这个状态切换的时候会因为它的加压有一个比较大的噪音啊，在飞船内部的成员可以听到。那么这个播报呢也是可以让他们准备好。刚刚听到他们和内部的通讯，就是告诉他们一声接下来要进行这个紧急逃逸装置的加压了。
A command that is sent to make that a valid exit strategy.
And as the pilot, you're there next to the commander, keeping your eyes on all the systems?
Basically, yeah, agreeing with him when he's sending commands that that's the correct thing to be doing.
When that propellant is loading, can you tell? Can you hear it?
So I thought a lot about that and kind of polled my crewmates and other people I know that have flown. Bob says that he recalls a gurgling sound. What I recall is more of like a whirring and clicking of the valves moving. So I think everybody's recollection is slightly different. And I had a similar experience on my shuttle flight that my
SpaceX launch escape system is verified armed.
刚才是确认了紧急逃逸装置已经进入一个上团或者说是可以随时启动的状态。
are not as good as my visual memory, and so I think everybody remembers, slightly different overlapping set of things.
And so we just heard that call out, Megan.
那么刚才 Maggie 说了是紧急逃逸装置上膛的时候会有一个明显的声音啊。他们刚才在问，如果开始燃料加入的话，你能不能听到声音？然后他说隐约可能有一点吧，就是说每个宇航员的印象都有点不一样。
And RP1. Which is a refined kerosene for spaceflight. A look from high above.
应该是发射前38分钟开始燃料的加注，先开始加注燃料，液氧稍微晚一点。
Getting ready to fly for the fourth time. We got the LES call a little early, so as far as the schedule is concerned, we're running ahead. But we're in a good place because propellant load starts at T-minus 35 minutes.
35分钟吗？好吧，35分钟，发射前35分钟才开始加注。这那个就和一般的发射一样的呀。我以为是载人的话，一般会稍微提前2分钟。
Loading the specific tanks with the specific propellants so that they can have a sense of where the vehicle is at every moment.
A live look there at the base of pad 39A, the launch tower, and the strong back, which is part of the transporter erector. It is in the foreground. The rocket is just behind it.
Propellant tanks will be venting for propellant load in approximately 1 minute.
大约1分钟以后会开始进行排气状态，然后就为燃料加注做准备。那么这也算是一个动作吧，因为就是说你要排气的时候要进行加注的话，你要保证管道里面有异物嘛，就像你打针前先把那个针头就是放一点液体出来一样的，就你要把里面空杂质给排掉。然后先会放一点燃料出来啊。然后就是把管道里面的杂物、杂质气体给排除掉，所以应该会先看到一个排气动作，然后再有开始正式的加注。
Freedom, named by the crew. Although parts of it
怎么说这么冷清？主播说话好像特别轻。
It's the first time they've used the composite heat shield structure. Reused it on a Dragon, which is just another advancement in SpaceX's reuse capability. They're able to put flight loads on it to test it and qualify it. NASA has approved it, and it's ready to go, which is interesting because it's seen the saltwater environment, right?
Right.
But they found a way to get that ready for another go.
Yeah, it is. It's remarkable, and that qualification program that you mentioned, very strict. Obviously, it has to be very thorough with multiple teams of people making sure that all of the requirements are met, so that there are no safety impacts to reusing these pieces of hardware. But how transformative, really, to be able to reuse pieces that in the past would not have ever been used again.
那么他们在提就是龙飞船的这个复用的问题啊，他们说是在龙飞船上面是第一次实践到就像是隔热防护层啊，因为那个是要接触到海水的嘛，但依然可以 NASA 就是审核通过了复用那个部分，算在航天史上也算是第一次吧。
Thinking about the Crew-2 mission as we look forward to Crew-4.
我现在在国内啊，所以这会儿对我来说时间并没有什么问题。
I'm thinking about the visit from the Russian film crew.
We did have some visitors. That's right. That's right. So they came up, an actor and a producer came up on a Soyuz and spent the 10-day time period filming a movie, almost exclusively on the Russian segment. But we were able to interact with them in the evenings. We would occasionally have dinner parties as we do up there, and so we would get to chat with them a little bit and hear about their lives and hear about their plans.
对，回来2个月了。
It was very interesting. They were lovely people. They were very gracious guests.
Propellant load has started.
好，这下是燃料加注正式开始了。
Propellant load has begun. A big milestone.
燃料的加注其实排气的时候看不到太多的特征啊。液氧的话会比较明显，因为液氧的话温度比较低啊，会冷凝空气中水汽而形成大量的白气。燃料温度并不是很低啊，所以不大看得出来。
And so it did not disrupt our ongoing science work that, of course, we're doing that's so important for our international partners. So I think it would be difficult to carry out a movie production as well as carry out the actual work of the space station.
Just another example of the continued private use of the International Space Station, and I guess you didn't photobomb their shot.
其实一般的我们看火箭发射 SpaceX 的火箭发射的话，我们都是从发射前大约20分钟左右开始看到，那个时候液氧已经加注了一定程度了，那个时候火箭已经会开始缠绕着白气啊，那个是因为加注液氧之后造成的现象。现在我们可以看到这个火箭是很干净的，就里面基本上什么都没有，才刚刚开始加注嘛。我可以观察一下这个慢慢的，就是因为液氧的加注，火箭开始表面结冰，然后开始白气缠绕这个过程，包括就说它缠绕白气的地方越来越往上升了，然后来外部观察一下就是这个液氧加注的过程。
In order to fly, Dragon needs a fuel and an oxidizer. So for the fuel, SpaceX uses monomethyl hydrazine, or MMH, and nitrogen tetroxide, or NTO, for its oxidizer. And together, those propellants feed the Draco engines that maneuver Dragon on orbit.
那么刚刚主播介绍的是龙飞船上面使用的燃料啊，那还是就是混合毒发，就是偏2加级那一个经典的系列。因为像龙飞船里面的燃料的话是需要放比较长的时间的，那么传统的这个混合毒发的话，其实一个是比较稳定嘛，还是可以保存很长的时间啊，这是它的好处。如果我没有记错的话，超级天龙座引擎和天龙座引擎其实用的都是一样的燃料啊，虽然它的燃料舱是独立的，但是化学应该用的是一样的化学。
Thanks, Daryl. Yeah, we are continuing to count down those final minutes, and everything is still looking good for Falcon 9 and Dragon.
有了，有一点点的白气开始了啊，大家可以注意到啊，来看这里有一定的白气开始出现了啊。如果说是比较新的观众的话，可以说一下，就是底下2/3是火箭的1级嘛。这边之所以会有一个明显的分界线呢，是底下这个1级高下的部分呢是燃料舱， 靠上这个部分里面呢是液氧舱。因为呢，液氧呢使用的是超低温液氧嘛，所以它会导致外部开始液氧舱的外部会结上一层冰啊，那层冰呢也在火箭返回大气的时候起到一定的保护作用，使得那一个液氧舱外部相对更干净一些，所以从外观上很容易分辨出来。
To ignite the fuel and oxidizer in the Merlin rocket engine, we use an ignition fluid called TTAB. When TTAB comes into contact with oxygen,
那么也算是安迪这边也是水一下，就是介绍一下燃料、氧化剂和点火机啊。那么燃料是航天级煤油 RP1，氧化剂呢是超低温液氧，然后呢点火机是 TTAB， 是一个我也不知道具体的情况，反正点火的时候呢会有一个特征的绿光。然后除了这3个以外呢，还会加注氦气啊，作为一个最初的加压气体，使得作为一个燃料和氧化剂进入预燃烧舱的一个最初动力。刚刚播报的是1级的氦气加注也开始了。
During recent flights, so this should be the sounds that the astronauts are hearing should be sort of familiar. Range and weather.
看这个白气已经开始很明显了。我待会看这个白气会慢慢的往上升上去啊，它覆盖的部分就是可以从外观上看到一个液氧加注的一个体现。加注其实是一个比较复杂的流程，有时候加一点还抽一点，就其实蛮麻烦的。2级的加注和1级加注又不一样，2级呢会晚一点发生，而且呢2级会先加注完燃料之后再开始加注液氧，是分2段的，而1级的话基本上是一个同步加注的过程，同时都会加注。看很明显啊，是从这个位置开始有白气啊，因为这个现在看到就是底部啊，就液氧舱底部开始有一部分液氧了，它会慢慢升上去。
ensuring that both Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready for launch. And you're looking now just over the shoulders of our team out at the Cape there as they prepare for liftoff. As we wait for the launch clock to hit 0, though, we wanted to give you a quick.
Once we hit T0 and a successful launch occurs, we will watch Falcon 9 and Dragon lift off from the
再介绍待会儿的点火起飞之后的流程啊。
One of the first things that happens about 50 seconds into the flight, those 9
首先当时是点火起飞，然后之后是在大概50秒左右的时候呢，应该是在50秒的时候是会为了通过 MaxQ 做一个节流啊，减轻那个待会通过 MaxQ 的一个压力。那之后呢是在1分12秒左右呢会到达火箭的最大动量点，也就是 MaxQ。这是因为火箭上升过程中速度越来越快啊，同时大气密度越来越低，所以在空中达到极值啊，就是空气阻力的极值就是 MaxQ。那么通过 MaxQ 以后呢，火箭进入一个相对安全的状态，那么会恢复全推力工作状态。那么之后呢是反正就上升嘛，然后到大概是70多公里的位置啊，那么会到达2分半左右，火箭的1、2级1级熄火、1、2级分离和2级点火3个事件是间隔10秒内发生。这边显示的是1、2级分离，然后下一个动画应该就是2级的点火。
The MVAC engine light up and propel the second stage along with the Crew-4 astronauts into orbit.
And as stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, stage 1.
那么与此同时呢，1级呢会做一个抛物线啊，继续上升，并且重新掉回来。然后7分多钟的时候是1级重新进入大气的上层啊，大气密度较高的上层，然后呢会在那个时候进行一个再入点火，初步的减速，以防止大伙儿呢过快过热。与此同时呢，当然2级还在继续前进当中，会直到8分45秒左右是到2级的熄火。那么2级熄火之后呢，基本是要过个几秒钟，然后确认一下注入轨道方向良好之后呢，然后会有龙飞船的分离。差不多同时呢，是1级呢也差不多要降落到驳船上了，大概是在9分钟不到的时候，那么会是着陆点火开始。然后再过10秒钟多一点，大概就是会9分钟左右降落在驳船上。那么确认好2级的方向良好之后呢，那么会在发射后12分钟左右，那么会有龙飞船的分离。 然后龙飞船分离之后的话，应该最后一个事件的话就是 B 锥的打开啊。B 锥打开的话，包括之后的像寻星镜等等的一些其他的定位仪器呢，也可以开始使用。那么应该就是到直播，应该就到那个时候就结束了。
Looking at some of those Draco maneuvering thrusters, there's 12 around the service section.
你可以看这个1级上面的白气越来越多了，整个范围越来越大了，还蛮明显的。2级上面呢还没什么动静，因为2级的话呢只有在燃料的加注啊，液氧呢2级还没有开始。
是的。
In about 40 seconds after separation, Dragon's nose cone deploy sequence will begin. It will take roughly 4 minutes for the nose cone hooks to unlatch and open, and that exposes its guidance navigation controls, or GNC.
13分钟不到开始 B 锥打开，这个 B 锥打开过程要4分多钟的时间，也是很慢的。然后大概是到发烧16分钟左右啊，那我们才会确认 B 锥打开，然后才会结束这次直播。
Undergoing a number of what's called phasing burns as it makes its way to the station, just essentially raising its orbit.
之后一系列的就爬轨啊、调相位啊等等，然后向国际空间站迫近。
And so all of that's going to be coming up soon. Let's check back in with Chelsea over.
这次应该是17个小时左右对接，对吧？
Hey, thanks, Dan. Flight controllers here in Mission Control are laser focused on the onboard systems of the space station, making sure it's ready to receive the Dragon vehicle later tonight.
这边这次休斯顿指挥室这边来水时间啊。
Dragon and the ground are working properly. The consensus is that
休斯顿现在这个发射其实跟他们真的没什么关系，他们就是这边蹲着看看。他们这边主要是跟国际空间站做协调的。 基本上就是说做点火、调相位、加速、迫近等等这些时候，他们还会做一下协调。然后真正忙的时候呢，是做对接的时候那会儿，那么这边才会真的忙起来。这会儿其实现在他们都是留守人员，没什么事情。
And the whole space station crew will join in for welcoming remarks to the new crew members. From there on out, they will no longer be referred to as Crew-4, as we're calling them today, but rather flight engineers of the International Space Station. Here in Mission Control, Flight Director Anthony Varia is on console overseeing the team for launch.
龙飞船里面的温度是就是正常的室温嘛，因为是载人的嘛，这个温度嘛肯定不会有什么离谱的数字。
8:15 p.m. Eastern. And that's it for Mission Control. I'll toss it back to the team in Florida. Daryl, I'm excited for launch. How's it looking?
All right, thank you, Chelsea, and so are we. We're looking great weather-wise here.
人回来了。
Green, weather is green, and well, we're green and ready to go for this launch. We are just T-minus.
他们的后面也放了一个龙飞船，这个龙飞船应该是假的吧？训练用的可能是。
Fourth astronaut rotation mission to the International Space Station under NASA's Commercial Crew program. And it's going to be a good one, folks. The 4 astronauts are strapped in. Commander Kjell Lindgren, pilot Bob Hines, and mission specialists Jessica Watkins and Samantha Cristoforetti. They are strapped into their seats inside Crew Dragon Freedom.
这感觉以及液氧已经有个1半左右的高度了。
To the screen right now, that is the Falcon 9. The rocket fueling operation is well underway.
同时，你可以仔细看的话，你感觉就是已经有白气闪耀的部分的以及外部啊，比上面要干净一些，就是因为有冰开始生成了，所以看上去要白一些。
So far, operations look and sound as expected. We are counting down to that liftoff at 3:52 and 55 seconds in the morning, Eastern Daylight Time.
那么待会儿有一个事件大家可以注意一下，就是在发射前20分钟整的时候啊，那么在中间这个位置应该会有一次比较多的喷气啊。那个时候呢，是因为2级呢加注完燃料之后切换成液氧加注，那么会把多余的就会清一下管道嘛。那个时候就会有一个特征的排气动作，会比较明显。龙飞船最快复用记录嘛？我不知道，要查一下。来早了不早啊，还发射20分钟，还算我这边是几个小时前就开始了。 查查看。
The mission is the continuation of rotational crew flights to the International Space Station from U.S. soil on private rockets and spacecraft, and this would not be possible without the success of NASA SpaceX Demo 2. a test flight 2 years ago, if you can believe it. The safe delivery and return of Crews 1 and 2. And of course, Crew 2 back on Earth 6 months ago. And that's why we have with us the pilot from Crew 2, Megan MacArthur. Appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. It's hard to believe it. I've been home for 6 months
这个
already.
直接答案好像没查到，反正要查，真的好好查最快的龙飞船复用周期是多少，估计会要花点时间，一般要几个月吧。可能要将近半年左右的复用周期，听上去比较正常，不是很确定。那个龙飞船的复用是比较麻烦的，基本上是要完全的大修，里面基本上要换掉很多东西。像火箭的话，一级的话，其实复用修缮相对会比较少，但龙飞船其实就修得很彻底了，它毕竟是要泡海水的。
Done a wonderful job for us tonight, and we appreciate it. As we continue to count down, we're looking for the next call out.
好，你看到这个特征的喷气了吗？这个是就这边这个喷气，这是为待会儿2级液氧加速准备的一个喷气动作。
We'll start loading stage 2 with liquid oxygen.
看到这个喷气啊，很明显的这个喷气动作啊，这是发射前20分钟的一个特征动作，常见的。这意味着2级要开始加注液氧了。
Stage 2 RP1 load is complete.
好，刚才播报呢也是2级的燃料 RP1 已经加注完毕了，接下来呢会切换成加注液氧。2级刚才就已经开始了，2级其实就比1级晚一点点开始加注啊，但其实但2级的是不同时进行液氧和燃料的加注的，它是先加注完 RP1 之后，然后再开始加注液氧。那么这会儿呢，其实就说是刚才播报的是2级的燃料加注完毕，现在开始2级的液氧加注。那之所以这里看到大量的白气喷出呢，也是为了2级的液氧做准备啊，也就是和刚才一样。你要排一点东西，把管道里排干净啊，然后才开始正式的加注。因为你直接把液氧排到空气中嘛，超低温液氧排到空气中的话，这种很冷的东西会冷凝空气中水汽啊，导致这种大量的白气生成。包括呢，我们到时候我们在发射前2分钟的时候啊，那个时候液氧完全加注完毕，那么支架塔依然会把多余的液氧排掉，会看到一个类似的排气动作。
Liftoff time 3:52 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
那之后呢？这会儿这种大规模的排气基本上就会消停了，但是呢，还会有小规模的排气呢会时不时的发生。那也是因为呢，火箭本身保护性能并不好嘛，所以它也要吸一点热。那么它是一个动态加注，时不时的加一点，时不时的排一点，就是说等于是保持内部的一个温度。这是指挥长，是一个华裔啊。又忘了他中文名是什么了。林奇尔。
Sitting next to him is his pilot Bob Hines, who was born in Fayetteville, North Carolina. There he is.
这是飞行员 Bob Hines.
He has a Master of Science degree in Aerospace Engineering and served 21 years in the U.S. Air Force as a test pilot and as a fighter pilot in the F-15E.
空军出身。
As a research pilot, but today
空军的试飞员。
For Crew Freedom, a fine commander pilot.
和另一个任务专家一样，是2017年选入 NASA 的宇航员。这是他第一次飞行。
While the pilot is monitoring where the vehicle is and where it's going, so you work very closely together.
Jessica Watkins is one of our 2 mission specialists, and she considers.
就是刚刚提到的，也是第一次飞行的 Jessica Watkins。
Rugby team won the national championship in 2008. She's a geologist who completed several internships with NASA, including one testing system designs for the Mars Perseverance rover.
地理学家啊，地理学出身的，他还参与过那个好奇号的一个研发工作。
NASA astronaut crew team. She's going up into space for the very first time as a mission specialist.
33号，33岁，是这一批最年轻的一个宇航员。那最后是 Samantha， 欧航局的宇航员，第2次飞行，第1次飞行就直接待了200天。是之前最长在太空驻留的女性的宇航员的纪录保持者，但现在已经不是了。
mission specialists. Now, each
之前保持过一段时间的最长时间太空驻留记录，女性的。发射前16分钟。这个这才开始嘛。现在正式开始2级的液氧加注了。你看这个排气就一下就停掉了。
On the frequencies you see at the bottom of your screen, VH radio frequency 146.940 on the megahertz scale.
刚才说起吸口纯氧是排出来的嘛？这评论说的，对啊，这个液氧的这个喷出来这个氧气温度很低的，真的要冻死人了。
Here on the Space Coast. Megan, let's talk a little bit about your science. Your team spent 199 days in space, a record, you call it 200, a SpaceX record for an entire crew of astronauts. With all that time spent on board Space Station, can you explain how Space Station acts as that orbiting laboratory where Crew-4 is heading right now?
Absolutely. So space station is obviously a very unique environment, right? It's long-term access to micro-G environment that scientists can't replicate or simulate accurately here on Earth. So it's the ability to run these experiments that teach us fundamental things about the physics of fluid mechanics, about combustion, things that we can't again replicate on Earth that can lead to discoveries that can benefit us in space, but can also benefit us back on Earth, like understanding diseases well enough to create new treatments for them, or understanding combustion in a new way to allow us to build cleaner burning engines.
You mentioned some of the science that you've worked on. What was your the most impressive and stands out to you in your mind?
Well, it's hard to choose a favorite, but of course one that is always popular is one you get to eat. So we got to participate in the Plant Habitat 4 experiment, where we grew chili peppers that hailed from Hatch, New Mexico. And so we got to monitor them over a period of many months. It was a fruiting plant that took a long time to germinate and to fruit. And for long duration missions, we'll provide an important vitamin C and other minerals for crews on long duration missions. And they were also just really tasty. So that was a lot of fun.
That's a bonus. And, you know, growing.
稍微费点时间说说看他们在空间站做的实验啊，像说是什么空间站比较重要的实验，像是研究燃烧的本质啊，物理本质啊，还有就是疾病的研究等等。他这边还说了一个自己比较喜欢的，就是种胡椒的一个经历啊。这边问1、2级分离要不要有一个弹射的动作？看你怎么说。就说这里说的问题，其实更好的说法是1、2级的分离机制啊。那么空舱使用的是一个比较温柔的弹射分离机制，它其实就是靠等于说1、2级中间的一个气体啊的喷气体的一个压力作用是1、2级分离的，算是一个相对比较温柔的分离，因为一般的1、2级分离其实用的比较多的是爆炸栓啊，那爆炸栓的话的火箭就不可能有复用了，他们这出于复用的考虑是通过喷气推开的方式啊，让1、2级进行一个分离。其实并不需要特别大的一个1、2级的相对速度，你只要多等一会儿就好了。1、2级分离之后大概等10秒钟左右，那么就有足够的安全距离让2级点火。这个有点尴尬，这是不是又是一个直播事故啊？这边好像采访已经在采访，两个人聊得很嗨，但是没有把音频切过去。这个是直播事故吧
？He, a geologist, watching another geologist, Jessica Watkins, going up to space today, so they share that.
尴尬，又切走了。这里问分离时如何保持加速度？分离时短时间是失重的。当然也不是完全的失重，就是说你还是会靠那个2级的自态控制引擎呢，会稍微喷一部分液氧，然后保持一个小的加速的以保持燃料在整个过程中是沉底的。但几乎在1、2级分离之后那个10秒钟左右，近乎是失重。
But what will they experience the moment of liftoff?
是用推杆吗？对，1、2级分离用的是推杆吗？我记得用的是气体啊。
It's almost indescribable because you start
不是很确定，
so fast,
可能也有推杆。
so fast the whole time that it's just a sense.
他刚才的问题也不错啊，就是1、2级分离之后的那段时间里面的话，就说是短期的一个近乎失重，但是2级呢还是会稍微推一下，靠自带控制引擎，以保持燃料是处于一个基本上撑底的状态。其实刚开始点火的时候，基本上是满的嘛，其实问题也不大。
We're about to watch this launch. So with T-minus 11 minutes and 25 seconds, let's toss it to Andy at SpaceX in California.
Daryl, Megan, thank you so much. It's getting more and more exciting here as we are just about 11 minutes until liftoff. Things are still looking great for both Falcon 9 and Dragon. Falcon 9 began loading propellants at the T-minus 35-minute mark. We should finish around the T-minus 2-minute mark. Right now, densified liquid oxygen is loading and continuing on the first stage. And again, this is going to wrap up around the T-minus 2-minute mark. The Dragon mission director and team are reporting no issues. Communication checkouts are complete. The crew access arm is retracted. The launch escape system is armed and the crew is strapped in and ready to go. Final instructions to the crew come in at the T-minus 10-minute mark. The crew displays will be configured for launch. This setup gives the crew insight into how the launch is proceeding and provides constant update on vehicle health. At T-minus 5 minutes, we'll be in terminal count and the Dragon will transition to internal power. And we'll hear continued callouts on the countdown nets as we get closer and closer to liftoff. Range and weather are both green. Right now I am joined by Dan. Dan, after ascent, we're going to hear some callouts for different types of abort modes, right?
Yeah, that's right. On the way uphill, you'll hear.
SpaceX, please confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
Freedom confirms displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX copies Crew-4, and on behalf of the entire SpaceX team, we're honored to have you aboard Dragon Capsule Freedom today. It's been a privilege working together to prepare for this launch.
这次是起飞前的一个乘务通告了，感觉是。
上一组是那个 XM1 其实是一个太空旅游任务，它并不是那个国际空间站的那个成员轮换任务。
To the threshold of this amazing opportunity to launch to the International Space Station from Kennedy Space Center. A heartfelt thank you to every one of you that made this possible. Now let's let Falcon roar.
船长指挥长在致辞吧，完全是在读稿，我给你看到了。
Okay, so crew displays are configured. The crew just reported they're good to go. They're ready to launch. Saw a couple of fist bumps there. But yeah, as you mentioned, we'll hear a couple of different callouts on the way uphill.
对，这边看了一下，确实是一个机械的分离啊，好像是。说是009号的 1.0 版的话是12个支撑杆，1.1 版换成了4个。哎，那现在这个 full thrust 有没有变化？我就看到是到 V1.1 版的009号。我知道可以知道以前是用的是机械的推杆。
A number of call-outs from some of the key positions on the Falcon 9 team, the guidance, navigation, and control officer, and also the prop lead. And we're going to be looking to hear trajectory nominal, propulsion nominal, just as we make that flight uphill. It's going to be about a 9-minute trip from ground to orbit. And right now we're just 8 minutes away, and we've got a couple more events coming up, starting at right around 7 minutes.
对，待会儿会做一个引擎的预热冷却啊，这边在评论也在问，还是一样的，就是空差的特点是它使用是超低温液氧作为它的氧化剂嘛，这带来很多一些小小的问题嘛，所以说它会做一个引擎的预冷却的话，是先放出一小部分液氧。因为它有些管道带着金属部分嘛，你要预先冷却一下，不然的话，待会儿一下子大量液氧通过，金属骤然降温，这个是对金属耐性有很大影响，所以要做的是预冷却。那么1级的引擎预冷却应该是在发射前7分钟左右做啊，应该是会有一个播报的。为什么感觉有点糊？好问题，因为 NASA 的直播都是 720P， 等一下，怎么 480P 了？不好意思，这是我的问题，切一下。感谢，我都没注意到，不知道为什么变成 480P 了。 看来网速还是有点不给力啊！我靠，我还支持不了720 P 了，关点东西。
Being flowed into the Merlin engine turbo pumps. Those 9 Merlin engines on the bottom of the first stage. All right, now we've got a couple more events coming up. Right at about T-6 minutes.
我就感觉好像虽然就是说是 NASA 任务的时候 ，SpaceX 用的也是跟 NASA 一样的分辨率，但是感觉 SpaceX 这边还是会稍微清晰一点。
可能这边是原始的吧。哎，女主播不好请啊，同志们。哎，说实话，现在的 Crew 系列感觉受到的关注也比较低了，我也没有怎么做准备，动力也不是很足。哈萨引擎遇冷却好像听漏了，反正应该赢过的。下一个时间点应该是发射前5分钟，龙飞船进入自带电源。你看这个节点的时候，1级的液氧基本上快加注完毕了。你看，就这整一节基本上都已经白气缠绕了。2级也是白气缭绕啊，2级的液氧也加注到相当的程度了。好，龙飞船进入内部倒计时。对 ，NASA 也不再用新火箭，这次是不是载人火箭当中复用次数比较高的一次啊？这次是第4次飞的一个火箭啊，对，这个应该是载人的复用记录比较高的一次。看一下，但是 XM1 好像数字更高一点。对 ，XM1 是5飞的飞船，一级。现在看下来，确实2-3手的火箭比较好。那现在是发射前4分钟，那么接下来的一个时间是支架塔向后的撤回啊，看上面的最小的机械臂已经打开了，正在打开当中。那么2个小机械臂完全打开之后呢，那么支架塔会向后撤回大约3度左右，进入一个发射的预备姿态。完全打开，那么那边上这个铁塔啊，就是支架塔，或者叫运输塔，或者叫直立塔，英文的 transport erector， 运输直立塔应该是可以这样翻译。先开始向后撤回啊，撤回就一个3度左右，稍微往后退一点。那么等正式点火的时候，它会快速的向后撤回到45度角，完全打开道路啊。现在就是一个准备姿态。那么这个塔的作用呢，也是火箭从机舱前往发射台的一个运输工具啊。把火箭从机舱运到发射台上之后呢，也辅助火箭直立。直立之后呢，火箭直立之后呢，起到一个和地面交互桥梁作用啊，包括电源、通讯和加注燃料液氧的加注。刚才播报是1级的液氧加注，1级的液氧加注完毕了。那么2级的液氧还要加注1分钟多一点。
这我不太清楚。我觉得肯定是不能下去的。那个成员就是那个成员通道壁都已经摆开了。
And expected for us at this stage in the countdown. We'll continue to see them build up as we get closer and closer to T0. We want to make sure that we are keeping the tanks as full as possible.
刚才也是3分钟不到的时候，刚才播报了一个龙飞船进入内部电源和内部基地室啊。那么还有20秒钟左右，2级的液氧会加注完毕。刚才也提到过，2级液氧加注完毕之后呢，支架塔会把多余的液氧排掉，到时候会有看到一个很有特征的 大量的白气从支架塔侧面生成的一个画面。你仔细听的话，我把音量调大一点的话，可以听到这种二级氧加注完毕了，可以听到这种很明显的排气声音。看，这个是二级氧加注以后的特征排气。刚才也跟乘员说一声，会有一个比较响的排气声音。这个呢是把多余的氧排掉的一个排气动作。你听到这种声音吗？排气声音，呼呼呼的，称之为火箭的呼吸声。因为是龙飞船，有时候也说是龙的呼吸声。发射前1分钟，火箭会进入 startup mode， 那也就是说是火箭的在建系统呢会接过控制权。好，那么现在是火箭呢已经完全接过了控制权，地面呢这块就要看着瞧了。那么现在
通道密已经收回了。
现在是好，发射指挥也给出了最终的放行确认 ，Go for launch。Freedom 也是 Go for launch。那么这边龙飞船也确认了。
You heard it there. 30 seconds away from liftoff.
30秒，20秒，来看倒计时吧。
T-20.
把音量调大。
NASA 的倒计时是不是有点延迟还是怎么？
不知道。
有点太快了，好像。
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
好，点火。
Go Falcon, let Freedom reign, Godspeed, Crew-4.
程序转弯了。
Freedom soars and the Dragon flies forth. Vehicle already pitching down range. All 9 engines have lit. Getting good performance on stage.
果然是 NASA 的意外。
对。就左下的速度高度表是 NASA 的版本啊，那这次可能看不到一级的单独的速度高度表。好，现在进入引擎的节流状态，为 Max Q 做准备。
In preparation for max Q, this is where the vehicle
然后应该是
experiences
超
the
音速，
highest amount
可以
of
听一下。
aerodynamic pressures, so we'll throttle down the engines in preparation for that event.
直接
supersonic.
刚才超音速。
Alright, so we've passed the speed of sound. We're already.
那么即将到达 Max Q， 也就是火箭的最大动压点。
现在是1级恢复推力。
对。
So right after max Q, we will begin to throttle those engines up again.
Copy 1 Bravo.
1 Bravo, so we're in the second and final abort mode for the first stage. Continuing to get good performance.
指挥长的一个
成员将会经受2击的加速度。
And coming up next is going to be a couple of events in rapid succession.
Yep, in about 10 seconds here, we're going to be performing engine chill on the
看到
second
现在
stage and
随着
back
火箭
engine.
所在的高度变高，环境大气压变低，所以尾焰的扩散
2级的深空美林开始遇冷。
This is where those 9 engines that you're seeing ignite on
其实也是这种扩散越来越明显之后，火焰的温度也会变低，所以看也会变得越来越暗淡。大概是2分20秒左右呢，是会1级的熄火和1、2级的分离以及2级的点火接连发生。所以这会儿呢，接近熄火的时候，你看尾焰已经变得非常暗淡了。这个时间点呢，1级效率也已经变得比较低了，所以要换到2级的真空引擎。
对，这个时候1级还会稍微再节流一点。以控制那个最大过载。
哦，这个熄火好晚。好，熄火了。好，转到1、2级内部的画面，左边1级看2级，右边是2级的画面。1、2级分离圈，2级点火开始。好，2级点火确认。2级的外部对点交换活络。 一级切到外部的画面，可以在2级的引擎的光照下看得还蛮清楚。这会儿1、2级还离得比较近，待会儿会逐渐远离之后呢，1级画面中的光线就会变得越来越暗。果然是没有1级的单独的高度速度表。
So right now, the first stage is making its way back to Earth to attempt its 4th landing on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. The crew
这里
is on
Andy
the
其实说的有点不对，1级
opposite
这
side
会儿
of
还
the
是在一个
engine
上升
to
过
the
程
right-hand
当
side
中，
of
其
the
实
screen.
现在已经完全按下来了，1、2级的距离有点远了，这会儿。
Seeing good performance on that lone Merlin vacuum engine on the 2nd stage.
1级这里应该看的是东海岸的夜景。
That separation event, it's going to continue to build up now. Sort of acquisition of signal Bermuda. That means we're now.
Dragon SpaceX nominal trajectory.
回收画面肯定会给的，不会不给的，这就太糟心。
That was our guidance, navigation, and control officer.
2级没什么太多好看的，其实就看一下熄火就可以了，8分40多秒的一个熄火就完了。通常时候这会儿如果有1级单独的高度速度表的话，可以看到这会儿还是在上升过程中，再过一会儿呢会到达最高点。
So we'll have the dueling boxes here for a while as the first stage makes its way down. That second stage going to continue firing until about a little over 8 minutes into the flight, doing the heavy lifting now.
2级呢这会儿是持续的在加速，高度基本上不大会变化，基本上是一个水平的就是保持高度在持续加速。载人的话，它的高度一般会限制相对低一点，就以防有什么情况的时候，它降回来还比较容易。
Start its entry burn. It's going to be one of 2 burns. This is where 3 of the 9 Merlin engines
SpaceX nominal trajectory.
on the first stage will relight and burn for about 30 seconds in order to slow the vehicle down before hitting the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Acquisition of signal, New Hampshire.
新罕布什尔的那个什么地面站得到信号。
就是火箭在飞行过程中，它从一个信号站切换到另外一个信号站的一个确认。有些时候会完全丢失同一信号也是会有。
Yep, this single engine here, Dan, can produce over 220,000
对，基本会保持在210公里以下的高度啊。就以防会有什么情况的话，那么相对回来还稍微会容易一些。就是主要是加速度，速度最后应该会加到26000左右。
Dragon SpaceX nominal trajectory.
Freedom copies, nominal trajectory.
Nominal trajectory. 还1分钟左右呢，1级会再入点火，到时候应该会切画面给1级。
Kjell, the commander.
We should get one more of those trajectory check-ins.
2级外面那个薄膜抖动，它就是因为那个它在点火嘛，所以它发动机运转的时候，运转的时候它就是会有抖动嘛。
这次是海上回收。那么回收船是 A Shortfall Gravitas。我们可以称之为不正经号的回收船。
Dragon SpaceX nominal trajectory.
应该是要开到1级的再入点火，给画面呗。切画面，切画面。
You were mentioning, Dan, about the trajectory. Things again continuing to look very, very good for the ascent portion.
哎，切画面啊，同志！
结果真的没有画面了，
我勒个去！应该是1级的再入点火了吧？播报都没听到吗？
Stage 2 flight termination system.
So for those just joining us,
来了，
又来了。
Just under 8 minutes into
刚播报了1级的，画面也有了，这是1级的再入点火。刚进入大气上部的时候呢，一个初步的减速。
You can see on the left-hand side, this is our first stage with 3 of 9 Merlin engines reignited and slowing down the first stage before we hit the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere. So this first stage has one more burn left.
好，一级的载入点火
That's
结
going
束。
to happen just before the
好，顺利
T+9
的关
minute
闭了。
mark, and then we'll attempt landing for the 4th time on our drone ship that's currently parked in the Atlantic
这
Ocean.
会儿还会时不时出一些火光呢，因为是它已经进入大气层内部了嘛。然后呢是还会有一些温度也比较高，这块会时不时会点燃一些刚刚没有完全燃烧掉的余碳，所以会出现这种时不时的火光，是正常的。
which essentially correspond to areas along the very northeastern seaboard of the U.S. and
一
then
级的画
across
面
the
还是保
Atlantic
持着，
and
但
off
是
the
是
coast
因
of
为是属于
Scotland.
黑夜
But
当中，所以
continuing
并
to
没有什么
get
太多的信
call-outs
息。
that stage 2 propulsion is nominal.
应该是再过几秒钟，应该会再过20秒左右吧，是着陆点火开始。
Indicative of our
看
final
来是
abort
一
zone.
级压音锁，应该快了。
2级发动机关机。
And after this second stage engine
你比我早2秒
shuts
钟
off its engine,
就
we
问
are
你
going to be listening for the
哦，是我
confirmation
这边
of
卡
a
过
good
了。
orbit, which tells us that the Crew and Dragon
好，
are where
2
they
级
need to
确
be
认
in
系统。
orbit.
好，着陆点火开始了。哦，
是的，着陆
看看
点火开始了。
看到远方的云被照亮的过程，
And
然
that
后
was the
云，
call that we wanted
然后
on the
云还
second
会因为
stage.
它着陆点火
Fantastic
变暗。
view of the first stage.
这4个宇航员不是平民，都是职业宇航员。
Fantastic view
看
of
到
the first stage.
看到船了，
Landing legs have been deployed.
这次信号没
returning
断
back to Earth for a
信
fourth
号很连
time.
贯哦。哎呦呦，哦，两边的信号都非常完整，非常流畅，非常流畅。夜间的，可以，很溜，很流畅的一个传家画面，还有点余火，无所谓。
But prior to this,
好，揭示这次零重力指示剂是什
we
么呢？
saw the crew. We heard that
有
the
2
crew
个。
has been successfully inserted into a good orbit, and this is them in
有
zero
2个
G.
带货这次，
Two of them for the first time.
这次带了2个耶，他们。
And getting a look, it looks like we might have a couple of zero-G indicators. I see a turtle in Bob Hines'
这个是乌
hands.
龟对吧？
That is the
另一个呢？
nickname for the astronaut class from 2017, of which he and Jessica
另一个好
Watkins
像是
were
猴
part.
子。
I believe we've got a monkey floating over by Samantha Cristoforetti, but first
它带了2只这
view of
次居然。
Crew-4 on orbit.
这个是
Experiencing microgravity.
从
They're
Demo
still
2开始
attached
的
to that second
Demo 1就
stage,
开始有的一个
which
传统，
at
就
this
是
point
所谓
is
的
gonna
零重力指
continue
示架，
to
就是宇航员
coast
进
for
入
a
轨道
couple
之后
of
熄火
minutes.
之后呢，
It's
开进入
got
失速状态了，
small
就可以让它
reaction
开始
control
飘起来了。
thrusters on
一
the
般都是
upper part of the second
玩偶，
stage
然后
that
都是
can
会
be
瞬
used
间
to
被抢
cancel
购而
out
空的这种
rates,
东西。
essentially making sure that they're on a stable coast
哎，带货小王子
before
都
we
是。
get to that separation event. After which we'll see
一只猴子，
Dragon
一只
Freedom
乌龟，
flying
具体是
free
什
for the
么？
first
到时候
time.
应该会，他们宇航员和地面通讯的时候大概会
Yeah,
解
a
释一下。
couple of stowaways. The turtle class really does seem to be taken over now with a turtle 0G
11分钟。
indicator.
那么应该是确认方向良好的话，会再等一个龙飞船和2级的分离。
After which a number of activation and checkouts occur automatically. First, checking out 12 of those Draco maneuvering thrusters.
问今年还有没有商业航天？年底可能有啊，就北极星看北京那一发是什么时候做啊？他说是不早于今年第4季度，有可能有，不一定。
It stays closed for the flight uphill to help protect all of those guidance, navigation, and control sensors. It's also covering 4 of the Draco thrusters that we're going to be using for providing the majority of the thrust, the push for these different phasing burns as Dragon chases down the space
哪国的宇航员
station.
？3个美国加1个意大利吧，就是1个欧航局。
All right, standing by for separation.
好，有了，
龙飞船分离了。
From the second
分离
stage,
确认。
looking at the unpressurized service section of the Dragon. There it is.
阳光一闪。
What a magnificent view.
哎，这个镜头是飞向太阳的。接下来就是等 BJ 的打开，然后这次就基本上
Looking
看
like
了。
a good separation, good rates. Dragon Freedom flying free for the very first time.
货舱摆那时候好像一般都是不带货
Those
的吧？
Draco checkouts are starting. And pretty shortly we'll
刚才
get
你
to
的
the
镜头应
nose
该也
cone
是看到了没有
deployed.
带货。
And that's
这
when
阳光
they'll
是很漂亮，但龙飞船
start
不
to
大看
open
得
up
到了。
hooks.
说这个比对打开过程至少要4分钟的时间，所以是也是比较慢的。就这里补充个背景，就是龙飞船里面的话是除了载人的部分，也是加压舱段以外的话，还有一个底下有一个桶状的非加压舱段，就是货舱。那货舱的话，一般载人任务当中是不带货的。
So though the crew, as we see them here inside Dragon, they have separated from the second stage, but they still have about a 16-hour journey before making it to the International Space
对，还
Station
要
and
16个
docking
小时多一点，是
tomorrow,
完
or
成这
today,
个。
later on
这次是不
today.
是比上次快啊？上次是几个小时？上次也是
But it is
20
so
个小
great
时
to
左
see
右吧。
them flying free in space.
上次好像是22个小时。
好像越来越快了。
And we did get confirmation
这
that
次
the
是
nose cone
16到
deploy
17小时的
sequence
样
has
子。
started. So again, those 6 hooks that hold the nose cone in place during the launch and ascent portions have to retract.
最早有一次好像是8个小时，主要还是看那个国际空间站它的那个怎么说，就是它的位置。
龙飞船有8个小时的对接吗？有载人的？
有，之前。就之前好像是因为它那个位置比较好，就是说如果说欧美舱段它有推进装置的话，是完全可以做到，就是说跟联盟是一样的，就是6个小时或者3个小时都是可以做到。主要是如果不调整国际空间站的话，不调整国际空间站的姿态的话，就比较困难。
对，俄罗斯的话基本上经常做快速对接，这个也是要以国际空间站会主动调整姿态做配合为前提吧。就是互相通信一下。稍微要商业
姿态可能，姿态可能不太恰当，应该说是就是提前调整它的那个轨道相位和轨道高度。
反正就是也就基本上就是相互配合。就逃逸是不是带加压舱、非加压舱呢一起调对？非加压舱之所以在这种载人任务当中也必须要携带着，有几个原因嘛。一个是有些功能是集成在上面，像太阳能板等等；还有就是这个小羽翼啊，就是加压舱跟非加压舱的后舱上的几个小翼板，这个只在紧急逃逸的时候起作用，所以是必须要有那个货舱的。
And that call from the core here in Hawthorne.
Core copies, your go.
Indicating that we had good checkouts of those 12 Draco thrusters around the service section. There's 4 to go after we get the nose cone open and the ECLIS, the environmental control and life support system, activated and running inside Dragon. The crew will be able to get their visors open and pretty soon get out of their suits and settle in for a 16-hour ride to the space station. So, with Crew-4 now successfully on orbit, let's head over to our counterparts at the Kennedy Space Center. It looked great on TV. I'm sure it was even better in person. How are things over there on the ground?
Well, thank you very much, Dan, and you're absolutely right. It was phenomenal here at the Kennedy Space Center watching the launch of Crew-4. Wow, Megan MacArthur, NASA astronaut, pilot for Crew-2, and she's been on the space shuttle. You got to watch that launch, and I saw you taking it in.
It was spectacular. It really was wonderful to see a launch up close again, a night launch, which has been a while since I've seen one in person. Just spectacular. It never gets old. I think if it gets old, you're probably in the wrong business.
对，2级是会在有最后一次点火，然后是载入大气，然后预定坠入在太平洋地区啊。
than usual, but that just might be because of the atmospherics, and then that
这
light
个
off
问
the
飘
water.
是什么
What a beautiful sight.
虽然我没注意到看，但基本上说，问这类问题基本上可以统一回答成是冰块啊。 就时不时都会出现一个小的冰块。
That's right. I know they're excited for lots of reasons. One, they're going to get to see their friends, and they're going to get to come home themselves. So they're looking forward to it.
All right. Well, Megan, thank you for your thoughts on that. And we also have a very special guest who watched the launch with us here at the Kennedy Space Center. Let's get over to Megan Cruz, who is with one of the astronauts who walked on the moon almost 50 years ago.
又是各种访谈。其实我就想确认一下，就是就确认一下鼻嘴打开就好了。哦，这就是刚才直播事故的时候，就是两个人聊得很嗨，但是没有音频的那个之前宇航员。
是的。
你刚才也看到他们两个人聊得很嗨，在做访谈，却没有音频。
阿波罗17号的宇航员。
哇，年轻时候。
What picture are we looking at right here?
Well, this is the crew.
我去啊，这
Ron
是
Evans,
老
Gene
古董了，
Cernan,
啊不
myself.
手手炮。
This is sort of the publicity
上
shot
过月
of
球
the
的人。
lunar rover. We were the third mission to have a lunar rover that we drove around on the surface of the moon. We actually landed in a valley deeper than the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And the rover enabled us to visit both sides of the valley and really just had not only a great time, but tremendous scientific return.
How does it feel to look back on these pictures? There's you on the moon there. To look back on these pictures and to be standing here 50 years later and you just watched Crew-4 launch.
Well, of course, I'm happy to be standing here 50 years later.
Good point.
And the launch of the Falcon 9 and the Dragon to the International Space Station was spectacular.
哈里森·施密特他是阿波罗计划中唯一一位地质学家，他也是唯一一位登月的地质学家。
And on board was a geologist, Jessica Watkins.
Yes, you got your special invite today from Jessica. I mean, what do you think about that?
That's great. Jessica and I have worked a little bit in Houston with the lunar samples and the like during the Apollo 11 celebration, 50th anniversary celebration, and she was very kind enough to invite me and my wife here, my wife Teresa Fitzgibbon, and we sort of consider ourselves the Jessica team.
Oh, that's so sweet. Just what do you think about the fact that there is a geologist on board, the importance of having a geologist for this mission?
Well, for me, I did not have a chance to gain the kind of operational experience that Jessica is getting. I gained my operational experience from learning to fly T-38s and
所以像他的话就特别轻。这次 Jesse 这个宇航员，因为他也是地质学出身嘛。
And that's very important. And I hope it'll stand.
对，现在应该算是打完了，主要就是发射部分应该是基本结束，就确认一下鼻锥的打开就好。
Talk about that. That's going to return us to the moon. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. It's been a long time. There've been several attempts. To get us back there, the two Bush presidents both tried to get something going, and it didn't materialize. But maybe Artemis is the third time's a charm.
用错词了，就不要抓着这刚才一个词儿。
渗透完。
不好意思，不好意思，有个小冰块飘出去了，这种是冰块。
The difference is NASA had to develop the technology for Apollo, advanced technologies.
2级上面是靠喷液氧做一个自然控制引擎的。那么液氧在真空环境中喷出去的时候呢，因为是一个快速膨胀过程，所以说有一部分会结成冰。
NASA has to integrate that into a new lunar program such as Artemis.
这不能说是原轨道吧，就说它反正要是走接近国际空间站的一系列步表，就说是调相位等等之类，让它调相位升轨。这个比一般的发射要复杂很多，但是不是靠2级去做，是靠龙飞船去做。
Yeah, well, like you said, I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you will that you witness Crew-4, and then also that you'll see Artemis.
2级现在做的事情就是再点火，然后去减速退轨，然后进大气，重新回大气，这是2级需要做的事情。
Perfect. Thank you so much. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Megan, and thank you to Moonwalker Harrison Schmidt. Boy, for astronaut Jessica Watkins to have a moonwalker on your team is a pretty nice thing.
That's pretty great, yeah.
It's fantastic. Well, we're joined now by Josef Aschbacher, Director General of the European Space Agency, who just watched his first crew launch just a few moments ago.
要扯到什么时候？我有点想结束。
Oh, thank you, Daryl. It's just a fascinating moment. This is my first crew launch. I've been Director General only since 1 year, so this is really a good experience. I have to say this is phenomenal. But let me also say a word of thank you to NASA. NASA is an enormously good partner to us, the European Space Agency. It's really a pleasure working with NASA. We have very good relationships, a very strong partnership. But also thank you to SpaceX for delivering our astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti up into the space station. It's a very important moment. But for us also at the European Space Agency, we are building up a strong human exploration program, and Samantha is the third astronaut now.
所以他这个口音跟法国口音还不太一样。
Matthias Maurer, who is in space right now, and now
确实
joined by
欧洲
Samantha.
欧
So
洲
a
那一
year
片
and a
儿。
half of presence of ESA astronauts in the space station is the longest time ever, and therefore for us this is really a very important moment, and I'm very excited personally, but thrilled to see what's coming. Samantha will have a lot of work to do, a lot of experiments. She is also a very good role model for us in Europe, but
其实还行，虽然口音蛮重，
lady,
但
and
是
this
吐字
is
其实蛮
also
清晰，听
on
得蛮
top of all the
也不累
other
啊。
qualities she has. So really excited, and once more, thank you NASA, thank you SpaceX for doing this fantastic job with us together.
And we appreciate all the work that ESA does as well for the NASA team and for Commercial Crew. And you can see Samantha, she's on the far right-hand side. Actually, you can see her boot there as she goes up into space. And a quick operational update, we have deployed the nose cone from the front of Dragon. That's an important milestone in order for Dragon to dock to the International Space Station. So we passed that milestone, and the crew continues, as you can see there, on their flight through space. You mentioned Samantha Cristoforetti. She was
行
speaking
确
the
认
other
笔
day
电
at
打
the
开
press
就好了。
conference.
好了，我
Not
们
sure
这
if
就
she's
算
going
是
to
看到
get
这
to
里就
do
算
an
差不多了。
EVA
发射应该
if
是
possible.
顺利完成了，
But
接着就
one of
是
the
看
exciting
接近国际空间站和
technologies
对接，
that
然后
you
开始
have
他们
up there
长期
right
任务
now
了。
is the European arm that's on board. This will be over on the Russian segment, but I'm fascinated by this arm, which like has hands on two ends and like crawls
我
around
就不
on
听他
the
们逼
station.
着，
It's
我
pretty
那
neat.
幸好我也大概就看到这里了。
In fact, we launched it last year.
行，
And it's
行
really
行。
neat. It's
很愉快，很愉快。这次的通讯质量总算是把那个 Discord 的问题解决掉了。这次两边都还不错。
And it is on the program of Samantha's
看完了这次的一个还算很简单、很顺利的一次发射任务，然后就等后续的文字更新后续的消息吧。那我就先下了，感谢大家的收看。
Not everyone knows, but yesterday was her birthday, and today she flies up on space, so it's a nice